Okay. So I pressed start. I think the stream. Actually, I didn't even check and see what does it look like visually. Oh, looks okay. Yeah, looks decent.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself here to check the
Okay.
audio though.
All right, let me talk because I know if you're checking sound, you need to have some sound going on. So testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha, hoo-ha. So you saw that I had some White Castle? I tried some White Castle. I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
let
I
me
did.
let me try some of these
Yeah,
things.
you had some frozen versions. I thought
Yeah,
those would
just
not be good.
they just taste like I don't know. To me, all frozen burgers taste the same, and it tastes like that. So I don't know how to describe it. It just tastes like a frozen burger.
Yeah,
But
they
there are
never they
no
never taste
White
as good to me
Castles.
as like going to the actual place.
Yeah, there's like no White Castles over here. I think if I wanted to get a White Castles, I'd have to go drive up to New Jersey, and that's like 4 hours away.
Wow.
So
I don't
they're
think
all in the.
I've never been to a White Castle. I'm not
Me
sure.
neither.
Yeah.
But I think the next time I see a White Castle, I will try it.
Yeah, I want to also.
It's like, okay, I gotta try this.
Yeah.
All right. How's the audio? Did you
It's
check?
good.
That's good. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So I know we didn't finish. Let's go ahead and do our introductions here. I am the woke centrist, aka Dusty Cubes, and we have Andros Mindgasms here
Yep.
because I decided to rename him because I don't know. Andros is such a bold and authoritative name that you just don't want to fuck with, you
Yep.
know. But anyway,
I have the
uh,
authoritative thoughts on Wizard's first rule in Gone Girl.
so we're gonna just touch on a little bit of the end of Wizard's first rule, and actually, we didn't get to talk much about my favorite character from that book, which is the torturer Denna, who is a Mord Sith,
Yeah.
and man, does she have a messed up background and it kind of this is where I'm going to applaud Terry with he very much went through how that character was created psychologically and the cycle of abuse. Often when someone is abused they become an abuser. That often happens, at
Yeah.
least I know, for at least for males, for men. But in this case, Denna was raised to enjoy pain or at least tolerate it to an extreme scale.
Hmm.
And to do that, to create her, she was subjected to torturing and killing her own parents, right?
Yeah. Pretty fucking intense.
Yeah, so there was that, plus it seems like there's some type of cycle that happens where the torturer gets killed by the torturee because we see that happen with her Mord Sith friend. what was her name? Um,
I don't remember.
Constance, I think
I think you
Constance was
might
her
be
name.
right. I think you might be right.
So she was extremely overzealous, and also a man hater. I guess I don't know. I don't want to get into the implications of that, but but we saw from their past that Denna had saved Constance from her master, and they ended up killing their master. But it seems like in the land of Mord Sith, killing your master seems to be acceptable and almost a rite of passage in that culture.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects of this book that I like, which is which is what we were talking about before when we first discussed Wizard's First Rule. That I like the different cultures that Terry Goodkind created, and the the different ways that they operate, like the Mud People we were talking about before. They have a silly name, but I think their culture is very interesting too.
Yeah, and also makes me think because this book was written in 1995. So, do you think that Terry Goodkind may have bit off of the Star Wars universe to create the master and apprentice relationship? Because that's the basic relationship that I'm seeing with the Mord Sith is the same Sith relationship where eventually the apprentice kills the master. So,
It surprised me. I mean, he did
yeah,
copy a ton of tropes from a whole bunch of different places. Probably copied some of the Wheel of Time too.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's way too similar to other books. I can't imagine that he hadn't read any of these other books. He claims to be an extreme Ayn Randophile, but there's way too many parallels to other fantasy series in his books
Mm,
that there's no other way to say that he had to have. He either lifted elements straight out from those other books, like Samuel is one of those elements. We kind of have this IDOM thing with the dominatrix, and he's definitely borders on plagiarism. That's what I think anyway.
yeah.
But okay, Dana. So there is a large chunk of this book where he is being tortured, so much so that he locks his dignity in a box and puts it in the back of his mind or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that before, about how I was saying that in my reread of it, I realized that the part of the book when Rand was getting tortured lasted much longer than I thought it did. And this that part was cheesy, where he sort of like he can use his magic powers to compartmentalize his mind so much that he doesn't actually get affected by the torture. And the second he magically uncompartmentalizes his mind, then he can be a badass and start killing people and shit. I found that very hard to believe.
Yeah, he went through a whole bunch of torture, and it's almost as if the trauma of the torture itself has zero effect on him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing we see that has an effect is that he continues to say like that Father Wall mantra. But yeah, it's super unrealistic, but it is what it is. And then we kind of get like there's kind of like what's the syndrome? Is it Stockholm syndrome?
Where you like like fall in love with your torturer. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of have that going on a little bit with I think the most poignant part where you can see that there's kind of a Stockholm-ish thing going on is when he asks Constance to continue with his beatings, and Denna rages out because she thinks she gets jealous, right? So she actually beats Richard pretty badly after he makes this suggestion. And then later she asks why he would say something like that. And his rationale was he didn't want Denna to feel pain because he didn't realize that when she touches the, what the hell is that thing called?
Mm,
Agil, is that what it's called? The
I
Agil?
don't. I don't remember.
Yeah, when she touches the Agil, she also um, endures some type of pain. It causes her pain. So the very act of torturing him with that rod also brings her pain. So he told her to have Constance train him to have her avoid the pain. And I think that's where she started to fall in love with him, because there's a point where she goes light on him, so to speak. You know, she
Yeah.
starts like going light is still shitty, but
Yeah.
like they go on walks and things like that instead of him getting beat. She gets in pretty big trouble for this, by the way,
Yeah.
because Constance is a bitch. She rats Denna out to Rawl, and then Rawl beats Denna for not putting Richard through his paces. But eventually, it seems like I guess what are we going to say? That love power overpowers all. Eventually, she becomes resigned, and she allows Richard, in the end, to kill her, like without resisting, which
Yep.
is, I guess, it makes sense when it comes to a Mord Sith, because it kind of feels like that's how the cycle of their culture works. But she willingly allowed herself to be killed because Richard had a deal with Rawl, and in order for the deal to finalize, he had to kill her, right? I remember that was one of the things he had to do.
Yeah. That's interesting, that deal that he makes, because that's not like not you would what you would expect. It's not the typical, hero confronting the villain scenario. He sends him to get tortured, and then he's got this elaborate plan going on based on this deal instead, which I thought was interesting and kind of weird in some ways, but also kind of cool in some ways too.
Yeah, so the deal was he gave him like a week to recover the box, as the box was being held by his friends.
What's in the box?
So his deal was like, oh, go get the box. And I forgot what his ultimatum was or what he used as a bargaining chip. It probably had something to do with Kalen or something. I just don't quite remember because there's
I
so
don't
many
either.
convoluted things that happen towards the
Mhm.
end of the book. But ultimately, yeah, he goes on a adventure with a dragon, recovers some dragon eggs.
Yeah,
His
that whole
friend,
sequence with the dragon was kind of was kind of like cheesy and like unbelievable. Although the one part that I liked was it wasn't necessarily to do with the dragon. It was maybe more to do with Dark and Rawl in some way, but in some way connected to the dragon. Where when he was with the dragon and he came across Kalen and his friends and everyone, uh, they couldn't understand him when he spoke to them, but the dragon could understand him. I thought that was interesting.
Well, the dragon could understand him because the dragon was in league with Dark and Raw.
Right.
So anyone in league with Dark and Raw, he would appear to them as Richard instead of
Mhm.
Dark and Raw. So, and then the
Right. So
dragon.
that's why they didn't believe that it was him. Right.
No, when they first saw him, he looks and acted and he spoke in Daharan, which is the language that Dark and Raw, his native tongue is.
Right. Right.
So they all, at very first sight, I believe, Zedekis Zorander, or whatever his name is, um, he shot wizard's fire at Richard.
Hmm.
And it was actually that moment had been predicted by the witch that he talked to earlier in the story.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah. And then that's when he also met his brother. His brother saw him as Richard, so he knew that his brother was a traitor,
Oh, okay.
which
Right.
was totally obvious to me because he was a sexual assault dude.
Yeah,
So,
they made him a really bad person.
yeah, like right off the bat, he
Yeah.
was a bad person. So, anyway, he goes back and his friends come after him. And he starts to recite this book of, what is it? The book of something shadows,
Ah,
book of
shit. I
hidden
don't remember.
shadows, book of
Yeah, yeah. I think it's
counted
is it
shadows.
Counted Shadows. Okay.
Yeah. And he gives them the book verbatim except for like the last couple lines,
Mm-hmm.
which is like to shift the boxes to the right or something if X, or shift it to the left to fly. And he didn't do that, so he got killed. Dark and Raw got killed. Um, and this was because Dark and Raw thought he was under the command of a confessor. And apparently, a confessor's magic doesn't work on Raw because he's in, or I'm sorry, Richard, because he's in love.
Right.
Oh, it's
That
a
that
love
part
story.
that part at the end that they were hinting at throughout the whole book, that part I thought was interesting too. That they
That
want
the
to be
power
to
doesn't
they
work.
yeah, and they want to be together, but they can't. But they kind of have to, but they also can't.
Yeah, because of the power. But it seems like, oh, I guess I didn't see that it was hint. I guess I just didn't catch that part too much. I know
Okay.
there's some
I
parts
caught
where
it
it's like, oh,
more
she touched his hand and he felt something.
right.
And then, yeah, I remember
I mean,
those
like
moments.
they really like Terry Goodkind really hints at it a lot, like when he's talking to Zed about that kind of stuff. Remember when he refuses to tell him earlier on at some point that
Yeah,
they
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I do remember that now that you bring it up. That's right. But yeah, and Darkenwall dies. The People's Palace or whatever becomes Richard's, I guess, and they have a lot of work to do. I guess I guess I kind of left it. I got to see where it picks up in the second book, but I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So we
Hmm.
never got to rating the book actually.
No.
So what was your rating for The Wizard's First Rule?
Oh yeah, I think we talked about this back when we first started our first episode on this, I think uh, I think I gave it like 3 stars. I
You
think you
gave it
gave it
3.
2. Yeah, I thought it was. I think I liked it a little better, or a little more rather, than you did. I mean, I think it's okay. It's not a great fantasy book that I would recommend to everyone, but it is the kind of fantasy book that I would recommend to someone who's not that into fantasy because it's it's easy to keep track of the plot because it's so basic in that way.
Yeah, it is a very basic plot. I would say for
I wouldn't
fantasy,
recommend it to like
a
fantasy
veteran.
nerds.
No, if you have been reading a bunch of different fantasies and you go back to something like this, you probably wouldn't like it. I wouldn't say wouldn't like it, but a lot of in this book has been done and done better by other authors. So there's nothing really extravagant here except maybe the torture stuff. Because, man, there's a lot of
by
that book
other authors.
dedicated to torture. But because even if I think of like Abercrombie, there are torture scenes in the first law, but there's not as much torture as there is in this book, I don't think, which
Yeah,
is weird and interesting.
and it's all crammed into one part too.
Yeah, it's
Like in the first Law books, they're like Glocta is one of the central characters, and he's always torturing people, especially in the first book. But he like it's spread out throughout the entire novel. It doesn't all happen at once throughout the course of several chapters of like I'm pretty sure it's at least 100 pages of the book.
yeah, it's a big chunk of the book is torture.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's pretty interesting. Also, the major flaw with the power is interesting as well. But man, does it make the main
Oh
character a
yeah,
douche?
like it works for you if it knows you're seeking the truth or if you know what's true, even if what you see as true is not actually true. So whatever you
Yeah.
truly believe, right?
Well, that and another flaw is basically you kind of have to be angry to use the sword.
Yeah, yeah,
As if you're not angry, it can have some pretty bad effects. Because I think there's a when he kills like the first person that he killed with the sword, it had like some physical backlash that he had difficulty handling. And even they're saying he couldn't kill Raw with the sword because he would basically expend too much power trying to kill someone that powerful. So if he killed someone that powerful with the sword, he wouldn't be able to survive the backlash of killing someone of that magnitude with the sword. So it has a flaw. And he was told earlier on that he would not be able to use that sword against Richard. I'm sorry, against Dark and you know. So it's worth checking out. It's not the best fantasy story. Um, I'll say it's. I can't think of a worse story that I've read. I'm sure there are worse stories out there in the fantasy genre. I just haven't come across them yet.
There's some.
Uh,
I'm sure there are plenty that are like not even readable because they're so
they
terrible.
are, yeah. Because this has been published and has gotten a wide audience, we are to assume that okay, it's pretty palatable.
Yeah,
But I don't know. It's just the standards that I have are kind of driven by the best in the genre, and comparing them to who we love, like our Joe Abercrombies or Sandersons or Jordans or
yeah,
even Tolkien's and and R.R. Martin's. This book pales in 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 any comparison. It's not even close. I'm not going to say this is the worst fantasy book ever, because I'm pretty sure there are some that are far worse.
Yeah.
And I've actually have one that I need to check out that Daniel Green said is horrible, called The Fifth Sorceress. He also said Nevernight was bad, and I loved it.
Yeah, and well,
So,
both of us love Nevernight, right?
so,
And
so
he also I think he likes Wizard's First Rule probably even less than both of us, even though you like it less than I do. I don't remember what rating he gave it, but I know
he
he
gave it a
hates
one. Like, well,
one.
if on
Okay, one star.
Goodreads, he gave it a 1 star.
Okay, yeah.
I gave it a two, and I said this isn't the worst book in the world. When I listened to it, I gave it a 2.5 because I don't know, maybe it was just sloggy reading through it, but I found just listening to it a lot better experience.
Hmm. I actually did. Maybe that's one of the. Well, actually, you know what? No, now that I think about it, I think it was the opposite for me. But like I told you before, the first time I read it was several years ago, before it was anywhere near as much of a fantasy nerd as I am now. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that I liked it more. But like I was about to say, I actually liked the audiobook more than when I read a physical copy, but it's actually the other way around. I really liked it. I remember really liking it the first time I read it, but now, kind of like I predicted, when I reread it this time, I listened to the audiobook and I still liked it too, but I think that most of the reason that I liked it less is because of those higher standards that I have now that you were talking about that you have because I've read so much fantasy now too.
Yeah, and I know there's probably gonna be some. Now that I think of it, there are a couple books in the fantasy genre that I'd probably not read over this. Um, and people are gonna say that's blasphemous. There are certain C.S. Lewis books that I thought were flat out boring.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh, okay.
yeah,
I was
because
gonna
I went.
actually finally read that whole series this year because I still have never gotten around to it.
Yeah, some of the C.S. Lewis books are boring. Like, there's really no way to put it other than that. I think it's
Well,
just like the story structure is like super infantile.
right.
It's I don't know. It's just not that appealing to someone of my age. Like even Harry Potter had at least some drama, that maybe reminded myself of like a teenager and having angst. And at least the characters have relationships.
Yeah. And with those
CS
books, they get like less YA and more adult as they progress, I think.
Yeah, they go YA, like to the upper end of YA probably, but I still think they remain within YA. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
just C.S. Lewis is just, oh my. When you read it, you'll know what I mean.
Okay.
Like, the only thing
Well,
I could really describe it as like infantile and geared towards, um, I don't know. It's just, it's just not that good for me. I'm pretty sure it's good for kids, like really young children would have no problems with these stories, but it's just not for me. Um, Another one that's going to sound blasphemous is some of it's going to sound some of the Earthsea books I also thought were kind of boring.
oh yeah, I actually haven't read those. I read another one by Ursula K. Le Guin. I think it was called Always Coming Home. I actually thought that one was really boring too. I think I might have even bailed on that one. I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, so I think Wizard's First Rule is interesting enough that you'll get through the whole book because it's interesting enough.
Hmm.
There are some books that are just boring. I know you bailed on even a Sanderson book.
Oh yeah, like Atlantis. Yeah,
I think Elantris is better than this, but that's my opinion.
yeah. Well, this
Um,
is kind of what we're talking about right now. Like reading tastes are subjective. Like yours and mine are pretty similar, but they can vary widely occasionally. And then, like Daniel Green has a lot of strong feelings about this book and other books that we don't necessarily share too, and so on and so forth.
yeah, like somebody he really hated some of the early Dresden books. He
Yeah, he
hated
hated like the
Nevernight.
first six of them, didn't he? Something like that.
Well, I know he hated like one of my favorites, and um, that's the one where Dresden finds out that Thomas is his brother.
Right. Which number is that?
That's number 6.
Okay, I was gonna say, I thought I remembered that two of the ones of the first six were ones that I gave 5 stars to, and I thought I had remembered those ones as being number 3 and number 6, and I think that those were the ones because the third one I remember that I gave that one 5 stars because I thought it was so awesome that whole shit with like
Oh yeah,
Susan
the Red
becoming a
Court.
vampire and him like killing that entire not
He
what he
killed
does in
some innocent
Danger, but
people. Like
yeah, he killed a bunch of innocent people.
that was kind of like we saw some of his dark side and how he deals with the aftermath of what he did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
That he makes mistakes that are grave that end up getting people killed.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, 2.5 is not horrible. Um, I'd say, hey, if you're new to fantasy, it's fine.
Hmm.
If you're super engrossed in the genre, this might seem a bit derivative. But
Yeah.
even though
If
there are
you
some
if you
books,
like if you're like an uber fantasy nerd and won't read anything that's like not at the level of Robert Jordan, then don't read it. But if you're not a huge fantasy nerd and you just like good fun books, then it's a good book.
yeah, yeah, it's just the tone is just all over the place, and
Yeah.
it's a weird book. Like the characters are a little awkward.
Yeah.
That's fine, but it's worth checking out. As I bet there's some series that I love that are super derivative that you probably wouldn't like.
I bet to say you could say the same thing for me about some stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I like some I like some like the Conan stories, for example. I read all or not all but probably most of those and talked with Daniele Bolelli about them. And also, I was telling you that I read that whole John Carter series that was written in the early 20th century by Edgar Rice Burroughs about this guy that goes to Mars, and it's all about like having like it's all pulp science fiction, like mostly like cheesy battles with all sorts of really cool aliens and sword fights and stuff, and I thought that was really cool. I really like most of those books.
Well, that one's on my list. I know I downloaded the first one. I think it's called like A Princess of Mars or something like that.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Yeah, I got that one. I just haven't gotten around to listening to it, but I will eventually. I think the next book I'm going to listen to those has to be nonfiction, possibly Jared Diamond. Right now, I'm listening to Before They're Hanged, and
Oh, sweet. I'm reading that as a physical book right now.
okay. So now that we discussed and finally finished up with Wizard's First Rule, I guess we can get started on Gone Girl here.
Hmm.
So, Gone Girl, another David Fincher movie. So, the last movie we did by David Fincher was Seven. And I do see a theme here with David Fincher movies as far as the endings go, and we'll get to
Hmm.
that eventually
Yeah.
here. But I know this movie was made, what was it, in 2014?
I'm
It's
gonna
not,
double check, but I think it was pretty recent. It might have even been more recent than that. I'm not sure.
yeah, so I know so we have the main stars. We have Ben Affleck, who plays Nick, I believe is the name of the character.
It is 2014. Yeah, his name's Nick. Yeah.
Okay, and then we have Rosemond Pike, who plays his wife in the movie.
This is my favorite role of hers.
It's actually the only role of hers that I've ever seen,
Oh,
so
really?
it would have to be
Have
my
you
favorite by default.
have you seen Die Another Day, the Bond movie?
Yes. Maybe I just forgot she
She's
was
in
in
that.
it.
She's in that movie when she was less well known. She's one of the. She turns out to be one of the evil Bond girls working for the bad guy.
So she was an evil Bond girl.
Yeah,
Interesting. What? Die
yeah,
Another Day. That was Pierce Bronson, right?
yeah, yeah. He
What
has sex
was?
with her in the ice palace before he knows she's actually a bad guy.
Oh, okay. I remember like the movies. Well, the Pierce Bronson movies got super ridiculous. I think that was one of them.
Yeah, a lot of them did.
Because I know the first one is my favorite, GoldenEye,
Yeah.
and then they got progressively more ridiculous as they went on. And I remember the Ice Palace one being like the ridiculous, like the Arc de Triomphe of ridiculousness there.
I remember all like really liking them a lot, all of those ones when they came out because I had way lower standards for movies. So I'm like, whoa, awesome action and cars and fighting and gadgets and women and stuff.
Yeah, like I like
And I
the
can't
campiness.
do
Do like some of the campiness. Like I'm
I
not
can't
gonna lie.
handle I can't handle some of the campiness though, and there's some campiness that I can't handle that you can handle. Like I think it was a while ago. I forget which one it was, but one of the Sean Connery Bond movies that I was watching, I was telling you that like I've seen it before, but I had to bail on rewatching it because he was gonna they were gonna put makeup on him to make him look Chinese, so
Oh, you're talking. I know which one you're talking. You're talking about Live or Let Die. No, that's not Live or
no,
Let
no,
Die.
that's Roger Moore.
Yeah, Live or Let Die is a zombie one. Uh,
The Roger Moore ones are the cheesiest ones.
I think it's You Only Live Twice, where he goes into the volcano with the ninjas.
Okay, yeah, the
The-
volcano with the ninjas.
well,
Saying
that's the
it,
one, right? That's the
yeah, I
ninja
think so.
volcano. The ninja volcano, and then he tries to dress up like he's Japanese. All they did was make his skin darker
And they
and
did
give him.
that. They did that really racist like thing to his eyes to make him look all squinty eyed.
It's so bad. But that's actually my favorite Sean Connery Bond movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm saying, oh, the ridiculousness, but yeah, that one is my favorite.
Oh, okay.
I do like some of the more ridiculous ones, like Roger Moore. Like the vast majority of his are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, I know there's all super serious now with Daniel Craig. All of his
Yeah.
are extremely drama and serious.
I
But I kind
actually
of,
was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I actually like now that I have way higher standards for movies than I used to, but I can still appreciate some campiness. I I like the I'd say I like the Daniel Craig Bond movies the most because they have all this drama and they make him like an actual real character with a backstory that is gradually revealed throughout all of those films and with what ends up being a consistent villain throughout all of them too, although I haven't seen the newest one yet, but and I like that, like even that first one, Casino Royale. I know there was another Bond movie where they did this. I think it was I think it was George Lazenby on Her Majesty's Secret Service when Bond falls in love and gets married. But that's such a rare thing that happens that I think that part was really cool about Casino Royale, where he fell in love. And I like that whole thing about that, like the first few Bond movies with Daniel Craig, especially in that one where he doesn't actually have all these gadgets and shit. He has to like MacGyver it more.
Well, let me tell you one thing about Bond. There's actually another movie where he falls in love and is about to get married, and then the girl gets killed.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yes, there was a Bond movie that was played by one actor for only this one movie.
you're not thinking we're
Ah,
not thinking of the same movie?
are you talking about the Daniel Craig movie or the older Bond movie?
Well, I was talking about both.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a Daniel Craig movie where, yes, he has like a love interest and she gets killed and he gets like super grizzled and jaded after that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying Casino Royale, the first Daniel Craig one is my favorite Bond movie.
Yes, but I'm also saying there's an older Bond movie um, with another actor. His name is George
George
something.
Lazenby?
Yes, so that movie that George Lazenby was in,
Yeah, that's the
um,
other one I was thinking of. So
yeah, so he was about to get married at the end and she gets killed by like a drive-by or something.
yeah, that's yeah, I forgot that's how it ended. But yeah, that's the other one I was talking about. That's as far as I can remember, the only other Bond movie in which he actually falls in love.
Yeah, so I actually thought that George Lazenby one was pretty good. Um, and you know who I think like straddles the line between ridiculous and serious is that one Bond guy.
Timothy
Um,
Dalton?
there you go. He was one of my favorites, even though
Oh,
people hate him.
okay. Yeah.
But Timothy, I liked Timothy Dalton. He wasn't too ridiculous, and he wasn't too like straight.
My
Because he
favorite
did.
role of his isn't even a Bond movie. My favorite role of his is the villain that he ends up playing in Hot Fuzz.
I have not seen that movie.
Oh, really? Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah. What's the movie called?
Hot Fuzz. Have you seen Shaun of the Dead?
I have seen Shaun of the Dead.
It's from the people who made that, and
Oh,
it got like the same actors.
oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that. All right, so we went off on the big tangent there. So Gone Girl,
Yeah.
made in 2014, and that tangent was fine because I had to look for my notes and I just found them. So, directed by David Fincher, Rosemond Pike plays the wife. I forgot the name of the wife.
I'm gonna look it up. It's like it
It's like
like
Emmy or Amy or something like that. Alice. I don't
I think
remember.
it's yeah, Amazing Amy,
Amy.
right? Right?
Amazing Amy. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So,
I
so
was in the process of looking it up, and then I remembered. I'm like, oh yeah, Amazing Amy. Yeah.
yeah. So my notes are going to be a bit scattered here, but I know the very first opening scene. He's at a bar, and you don't even know that this is his sister because they don't really tell you what their relationship is. So me, I'm assuming that, oh, the guy's like a cheater or something. He's talking like super casually with a chick at a drinking at a bar in the middle of the day.
I
Like
assumed he
the
just
guy's a day
knew. I
drinker.
assumed, like, before I knew that she was his sister, like the first time I saw it, I just assumed that he was just a regular at that bar, so he knew the bartender.
Oh, maybe something like that, like a day drinker. Where like,
Yeah,
okay, there's
yeah,
something going on with this dude.
yeah.
Um, and he's explaining to this bartender lady that it's his 5th year anniversary. And we do get some flashbacks about his relationship, and it's interesting the way that they play with POV in this film.
Yeah, I love that. I love that aspect, and
It totally throws you off.
it's
Because,
sure as fuck does, right? Because like the
yeah,
first
it
half
builds.
of the movie or so, you think, "Holy shit, man! This Ben Affleck character, his
Is an
character
asshole.
is he's
That's
fucking awful, and he murdered his wife."
Yeah, so they do a really good job with the POV and setting Ben up as a bad guy. I think right in the beginning, he's day drinking on his anniversary, and then we do see glimpses of their early relationship. So he has like a flashback of the first time they meet Amy at some type of pretentious like party of some sort,
Yeah,
and they have a little banter back and forth, but we find out that Ben Affleck's character and Rosemond Pike's character are both writers.
right.
So I'm thinking, okay, if they're both writers, how is that going to work out? Um, but anyway, so they're both writers, and at the end of the little scene, they're like kissing in the alleyway, so men making out.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
and they do that. That part is actually kind of crucial for one little part later on where he does that thing that he wants to show her, where they go past the, I think it's like the back of this restaurant, and there's like what he calls a sugar storm from the fresh baked goods coming in, and then he does this thing that's part of their relationship
yes,
where he
the
like brushes
thing.
the, yeah, exactly.
Didn't they totally bite that thing off of Face Off?
Isn't the face off thing where John Travolta touches the faces of his wife and kid?
Yes.
I think that it's a little different in this, in that like he puts his finger on her lips, and he like wipes off sugar from her lips, and then she also, I forget exactly how this happens, but she's like making fun of his chin at some point, and then like and and then like covering up his chin cleft, his bum chin, with his two fingers is his way from then on of saying, "I'm being honest."
But yeah, they had an interesting start. But next scene, Ben's back in the bar. I think they're playing like the game of life or something.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they play board games with each other at the bar.
Yeah, so it's like one of those hipster bars. I've been to those bars, so I kind of know. Like, oh yeah, let's play board games and Nintendo and have trivia.
That sounds pretty cool, actually. I've never been to a bar like that.
Oh, well, where I used to live, there was like a bunch of hipster bars I'd go to. So usually they have theme nights during the week. So trivia night might be like a Wednesday, and then they'll have like game board night on a Thursday and stuff like that.
That's pretty cool.
Um, but anyway, after he's done with the bar, he goes home and he sees a shattered coffee table. Um, and then one thing I did notice about the house is that it's basically in immaculate condition. It's like the cleanest fucking house I've ever seen in my life. It's like,
Yeah. Maybe a
Jesus, did
crazy
these.
person's living there.
Yeah, it's like the people that live here must have like extreme OCD because there's like nothing out of place in this entire. And that gets me thinking, like, how many movies are there like that where the house is like ridiculously clean? Like I've
Mhm.
Like I've been to a couple people's houses that are like that, but then again, the people that live there, I know some of them had OCD, so it's kind of par for the course there.
Right.
Um, so yes, he comes home to a shattered coffee table in an otherwise clean house, and this is where I guess we find out that he's a co-owner of the bar. So what happens is he calls the police, and they find out that his wife is amazing Amy, And we also find out that the parents are kind of assholes. Because
Yeah.
there's like some flashbacks where Amy talks about how Amazing Amy's life is like the ideal version of her own life, and all of her stories are based off of good outcomes that had happened instead of the negative outcomes that happened
In
with
real life.
Amy. So she kind of has like this bizarre, like Amazing Amy is a bizarro version of Amy herself.
Yeah. That's like the series of children's books that her like psychopathic parents who she gets her some some of that from like forced her to do as a child and made her into a childhood celebrity, right? Something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a weird, they have a weird relationship. In my notes, I just put asshole parents. But they do have, he has another flashback about when he does, like, when he asks to get engaged. So they're at like a party and there's like a bunch of journalists there, from what I remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was at the table in the middle of some type of interview with a table full of journalists, and he goes over and then he asks her questions as if he was a journalist. And
Yeah.
then, like, the final question he asks, like, in front of everybody is if she'll marry him.
Right.
And then after that flashback occurs, I got the notion that, okay, his these flashbacks seem pretty amazing, but also we get the notion that he's not doesn't seem terribly concerned about his missing wife.
Hmm.
Like
That's a
throughout,
really cool thing that they do, like with the shifting perspectives as you were talking about, and how David Fincher and all the rest of the people involved with the film, they set up this sort of fairy tale life that they had with the flashbacks, and then throughout going back to the flashbacks you see the like the gradual decline of their relationships, and then later on there's that huge twist. And so like in this part we we also get the voiceovers of her journal entry, and they're
mhm.
presented as if like she is telling the truth about what's happening, right?
Yeah, because those journal entries throw you off because those are specifically written for a purpose that they're not entirely true.
Yeah, she
So,
wanted the diary to be found.
mhm. So the next thing that happens is he's at the police station and he's talking to the cops and he's getting interrogated. And like I said, he doesn't seem that concerned about his wife being missing. So he's waiting on something and he sees that his dad's at the office. And I guess he got picked up for public intoxication or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and he agrees to drive his dad home. And we see that they don't really have a good relationship.
No.
Um, when he drops him off, and it's not his house; it's like a kind of like a retirement home. I think he drives him to,
Yeah. Yeah,
like a nursing
he
home.
drives him home. I think they don't even say anything, and then he drops him off. He the An attendant comes and gets him, and I forget what he says, but he says like I love
Get your
you.
fucking hands off
Yeah,
me!
and he's
That's
you
what
got
he
your fucking
says.
hands off me. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So we get some more flashbacks about the bliss of his marriage. And it appears everything is going great. He has sex in the library with his wife.
Yeah.
Um, it's even it's even implied that they know each other so well that they bought each other like the same present.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
hmm And and then we go back and he's at his sister's house talking about the missing wife. And we get a notion that the sister doesn't like Amy.
And she's right too.
Yeah, so um, I think they ask him about his relationship. She asks him about his relationship with Amy, and he says it's complicated. And she says complicated is code for bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
um, which is probably true when we get down to it.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, um, later, we see some random woman show up at his house who claims to be Amy's best friend, and he's like, "Yeah, right. This lady's crazy."
Yeah. Like
And
he
yeah,
literally has never seen her before.
so this is all the while he's at home, and the cops are like they're still investigating. Because there's like this movie just kind of goes from scene to scene, back and forth, like from journal entry to flashback to present. So it really messes with you. And at
Hmm.
least in the first half of the movie, really messes with you.
Yeah.
So, so while he's at home, the investigators are there, and I really like the main detective chick because she's
Yeah.
like the voice of reason. But
Hmm.
um,
Yeah,
anyway, while
she's
the
a good character. Like, she's she's the most interesting one of all the cops, I think, because she's actually like thoroughly investigating this and not just following her hunches like her partner is. And then like later on, we see all the other cops just like believing believing Rosemond or Amy's story, and she's the only one who's skeptical about it, and she's the only one who gives Ben Affleck any benefit of the doubt at all too,
hmm
because it just seems obvious to everyone else that he murdered his wife.
hmm So they find they don't really. The cops find blood splatter. They don't tell um, Ben Affleck's character that. They kind of like keep that to themselves, and then they find a letter which says "Clue 1," and it actually was a clue left by Amy.
Hmm.
And what Nick thinks is that it has something to do with a scavenger hunt in relation to their anniversary.
Yeah, because she does that every anniversary, right?
hmm And the envelope is marked Clue 1. And at that point, the dude's like starting to look out of it, by the way. Um, by
Yeah.
the so they're back and they're investigating this clue, and right then and there, the parents show up, and they're trying to arrange some type of search party for Amy. So the search party, I think it's taking place at some type of huge community center, right? And
Yeah, they're having some sort of like big official wake for her or something like that.
well, I think he's trying to gather volunteers to search. So
Right.
they're not like saying, "Oh, she's dead" or something. They're just like, "Hey, let's see if we can find her."
Yeah, yeah.
So this brings out a bunch of people. He's very cordial with everybody. He takes like a selfie with some lady, in which he asked for her to delete the picture.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as he does it, he's like, "Oh shit, that's gonna come back to bite me in the ass."
Yeah, it does, but he did realize that it would, and she was a bitch about it and was like, "No." I was like, "Man, that's messed up." You
Yeah,
know, it's not this guy dude's missing wife's event to like try to find her, and she's more concerned about a goddamn selfie
yeah,
with, with the dude. That's pretty jacked up. But
yeah,
um, so he does like a little speech in front of a crowd about trying to find his wife, and he awkwardly like poses with a like a poster of his missing wife, and he smiles.
I like that you put that as the picture for the thumbnail for this. Like,
Yeah, he's like doesn't know how to act in front of cameras. He It seems like what's wrong with this guy? Throughout the
yeah,
movie, I'm thinking, what the hell's wrong with him?
he's
He's
just
like
doing all these things to
smiling.
make him look bad.
Yeah, like dude, like he hasn't shed a tear. He doesn't seem overly concerned. He's smiling during pictures.
Yeah,
Like, what's wrong with this freaking dude? Um, and so we find out that does Desi show up at this event? Oh, he does. He
yeah.
did, right? In like
That
incognito, he showed up.
this that oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm thinking of a later event. I think so, right? Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
believe he
He was,
showed up.
yeah, yeah. He was like you were saying, he was kind of like being inconspicuous about it.
Yeah, so he was there, being a weirdo. Um, and he starts talking about like his wife's past relationships. And he does mention Desi and someone else named Tommy O'Hare
Hmm.
when he's talking to the investigators. I think we do. He does follow up with both of these people later in the movie.
Yeah, and they have both have extremely different reactions.
Yeah, very different.
And this is funny too, right? It's interesting because it made me think about how good of an actor Neil Patrick Harris is because you and I just talked about my favorite role of his, which is his hilarious cameo in the Harold and Kumar, well, all three Harold and Kumar movies, where he plays an
yeah,
asshole version of himself. But then and it's hilarious, but then he can also really like play this extremely serious role very well too.
yeah, he's a creeper in this. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so they're with the cops, and then they open the letter, and clue one points to an office. So next thing we know, um, they go to the office and they find like some red lingerie, and then they do find clue number two. And clue number two sounds like it's some type of cosplay or role playing situation where he plays, I don't know who plays what, but it's a relationship between a student and a professor.
Yeah. Oh wow! I just realized I didn't even realize
Oh,
after like rewatching this until you just mentioned it that
I
way.
just realized it now, right
Yeah, I
now, as
think
we're
that's
just
like
talking
another
about it.
subtle dig of hers, like pointing out that he's cheating on her because he cheats on
Yeah.
her with one of his students.
So yeah, wow, yeah. I was like student and professor. Ah, I see
Exactly.
where this is going. We
Yeah.
we don't see it at the time because that relationship is not exposed yet.
Yeah.
So it just seems like a like you
You know,
know,
standard fantasy.
yeah. And at the office they find, I know a he, knows what the clue 2 leads to, um, but he doesn't share that with the police.
Yeah, because that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, so the clue leads to his father's house. He goes there and searches, but the cops actually show up while he's there, and he just kind of makes up a story,
Yeah,
right? And
but he's actually there because he thinks that's where the clue might be, right?
yeah, so he does find another clue, and in the clue it mentions to look at a place where he keeps his goodies. So this clue is probably related to the stash.
Hmm.
um,
The stash that he had no fucking idea about.
yeah, none. So we have some flashbacks about the relationship. Apparently, during the relationship, it's kind of a rocky situation where the parents are having some type of financial trouble and they need to take away Amy's trust fund, right? So we get like the first kind of visualization of a turn in their relationship here. And
Yeah.
I guess the main issue is that both of them aren't working at this
Hmm.
point. So they're kind of trying to figure out how they're going to scrape by.
Yeah.
And then the next scene we have what I thought. It's like, hey, here's Ben Affleck being an asshole, sitting on his ass at home playing video games, and he just bought a laptop, and they're like struggling for money, and he's just not even acting like that's the case.
And he bought a video game and is playing and is gaming all day.
Yeah, he bought freaking video games and then a laptop,
Yeah.
and then he brings up he starts to have a conversation about the prenup that they had.
Right.
And then I wrote a note. Ben Affleck is kind of an asshole.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it worked. It really works.
Yeah. So they go back to, he's back at the task force headquarters. And yeah, like I wrote that he was being oddly jovial with everybody. And then finally, someone addresses this. His mother-in-law, you know, steps him aside and asks him about this behavior. And his response is that he was raised to be nice and that all these people are here to help look for her. So he just, that's the way he was raised, to be nice to everybody. So I guess
Mhm.
it kind of puts like a different lens on things a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Um,
he's not going around he's not necessarily anyway just going
mhm,
around feeling nothing about his wife going missing and just being happy and happily taking pictures with people. He's trying to be nice to people because they're helping find her.
mhm. So we get another flashback, and this is their move to Missouri. So so Nick finds out that his mom is suffering from an illness, and he convinces Amy to go and move to Missouri, which is where this whole ordeal is taking place, by the way.
Hmm.
And Amy notes that she says during her little diary that she didn't feel wanted in Missouri.
Yeah.
Felt that Nick was prioritizing his family over her, which is, I don't know, I guess you could say it's somewhat true.
Yeah.
Well, at least it seems true even after the twist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so he goes back to his sister's house because he doesn't want to go home because there's just a bunch of paparazzi hanging out. So he goes back to his sister's,
Yeah.
and they're having problems, and she seems pretty die hard, like a ride or die bitch. Um, I think she's probably the most ride or die bitch in this movie.
Yeah.
Like she's always sticking with
Hmm.
Ben throughout the worst of it.
Yep.
Even when he has doubts that he has doubts in her where he starts to suspect that she thinks that he did it,
Hmm.
which is never really the case. But
Yeah.
anyway,
They talk a few times throughout the movie too about how uh, some of that seems to be related to them being twins, right? They've always
yeah.
had this really close connection.
hmm So while he's staying there, he receives a phone, like a text, and it says, I'm right outside. So I'm thinking, what, is Amy back? And then he starts randomly kissing some chick. I was like, what the fuck is going on here in this movie?
Yeah,
And it ends up that he has a side piece.
a super
Now,
fucking hot side piece.
so this part really pissed me off because it's not that. The weird thing is that the side piece part didn't piss me off. The part that this dumbass chick who knows that this shit is going on decides to randomly fucking show up at
Yeah,
the worst possible time ever.
yeah, at the worst possible place.
Worst possible place, worst possible time. It's ridiculous.
And she
Like if
and she's like so pushy too. He's like, "Holy shit, you shouldn't fucking be here." Okay, I guess you could stay. No, you should leave though. You took your shirt off. I guess you're staying.
yeah, and they end up getting it on.
Yeah.
Um, so this is where we find out that he was going to get a divorce eventually. And I put in notes, Nick is a crappy dude.
Yeah. That's another way that shows how effective the film is, because you really believe that he's just this fucking awful person. Like his wife is missing and he's fucking his side piece. That's good.
So we get another journal entry from Amy. Apparently, according to her journal, she started getting depressed and that she really want to have kids. And they have like an argument. And during this argument, according to the journal, Nick pushes her.
Hmm.
And we're like, oh, wow. Because we don't know that this is all bullshit yet, but we're like,
Hmm.
fuck, Affleck is a piece of garbage.
Exactly.
um, and then at this point, I believe the cops had gotten a hold of the journal.
Yeah.
So they went and looked and they found it. So they are following up on the journal by going to, I don't know what you want to call it, like a crack house or something.
I
Is that where they go?
thought they were going to. Maybe I don't remember specifically the part you're talking about. It's
It's
not the
like
part
the cops, like the detective lady goes to like this crack house place where there's like a bunch of junkies.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, because there's a part where she's following up a clue from the journal where she said that she bought a gun. So the detective goes to this junkie
Oh, right,
place
right, right, right. Yeah,
to follow that lead. And the junkie said, "Oh yeah, she came here asking about a gun."
right.
because in the journal, after she described herself as being assaulted, she thought that Nick was going to kill her.
Right.
So after that,
Such a fucking convincing psychopath.
yeah. So after that journal entry and that little interlude with the police, next day, the side piece, they wake up. So he didn't kick the side piece out when he should have.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and the side piece is still there. So the side piece gets kicked out of the house. And the sister saw the side piece and she's freaking out. Like, what the fuck?
The
How much of an idiot are you, basically?
the way that happens is so funny too. Like he wakes her up, they're whispering and being all quiet, and he sneaks her out the front door. My sister's gonna be up soon. And then he closes the door, and he breathes a sigh of relief, and then like a millisecond later you hear his sister yelling, "You fucking idiot." Because she could see what was happening, because they have that kitchen where there's like where you can see into the kitchen from the living room and vice versa, and you can see the front door from the kitchen, but from their perspective they couldn't see her because there's that like it's that thing there's a gap between the counter and like the cupboards above it, so you can only see it that way, and they didn't look that way, so they didn't see her.
Yeah, that's just a monumentally stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, is not only is Nick's a crappy dude, he's also stupid.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, anyway, so he goes back home to his normal house because his sister's upset with him.
Yeah.
And we see police going through his trash. And then eventually we see that the investigators found that there was more blood, of Amy's blood at least, in the house. So that's another clue, because we see that the detectives throughout this are slowly building a case through little snippets of scenes. So the next big event is they actually start a vigil for Amy at night. So there's like a community vigil, and there's like a bunch of people there. And this is kind of like Ben's last attempt to look like a normal person
Mm-hmm.
and try to make a speech that doesn't seem callous and whatnot. So he actually does do a good job here, except he gets interrupted by Amy's quote unquote best friend, and
Yeah.
she screams out that, "Did you know your wife was pregnant?" Um, and he does stutter at that, and he ends his speech and he gets mobbed by a bunch of reporters,
Yeah.
and he's starting to feel the pressure. And
You really feel like the first time you see this, you really feel like he's a fucking tremendously awful person at this point, right?
yeah,
Like his wife has gone missing, presumed dead, and
has a side piece.
he cheats on her with he cheats on his pregnant missing wife with the side piece.
Yeah, he has a side piece. He's hiding clues from the cops. Um, he doesn't seem all that torn up about his missing wife. So, like, the director is stacking evidence up that Nick is a shitty person and is probably the one that had something to do with his wife's disappearance.
Yep.
And then they make it seem that he's not too interested in what his wife does, because well, he describes his wife doing, oh, she just sits at home all day and reads.
Yep.
Like he doesn't even know that she has friends or anything like that. Like doesn't sound too knowledgeable about kind of life that his wife leads whenever he's asked about it by the detectives or anybody else.
Yep.
So feeling the pressure, he leaves the event, and then he's taken in for questioning again. And at this point, he lawyers up and he stops talking to the
Hmm.
detectives because at first he was completely open, but now it seems like there's so much evidence against him that he has to, you know, stop talking to the lawyer. So the sister gets really pissed off and she finds out that he has like this little box of hate where he was kind of saving like this bad stuff about his wife. Um,
Yeah.
and the cops had found that diary in the furnace. So um, the diary actually, my bad, they hadn't found it yet. The reason why they went and followed up with the junkie is because they talked to Amy's fake best friend.
Yeah.
So it's at this point where they actually find the diary in the furnace.
That was such a huge part of her diabolical plan with that
That
friend, right?
diary, yeah, is a
And the diary,
completely.
yeah, that's a way even bigger piece. Yeah.
So as Nick figures out the last clue, he rushes over there to his dad's house, but the cops were already there. So he actually goes out and at the shed he finds the stash.
Hmm. And not the good kind of stash. Well, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. So we see the stash. We're like, holy shit, all this stuff is true. And then that's where we get a scene where Amy is alive and
Yep.
kicking.
That's
And
where
this
we
is
get
like
that's
this
where
is
we
like
get
the
the huge
WTF
perspective
moment.
switch. Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is the WTF moment of the movie.
And it isn't
Like,
even the biggest one.
no, it's not. That's kind of like where it switches to, um, okay, what is really going on here? Because
Yeah.
it looks like everything that they've been building up is leading to a murder.
Hmm.
But obviously, Amy's alive, so nobody was murdered. So what the hell's going on?
Exactly.
Um, so she does like a little bit of internal monologue saying that all the shit's made up.
Yep.
And then I wrote a note and I put both of these people are shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as part of her, she hit herself in the face with a hammer.
Yeah. Part of it was to make it's like she's so such a fucking manipulative psychopath. Like she does that to make it look like she's been beaten up by her husband, right?
Yeah, by boyfriend or whatever. I don't know if it was
Yeah,
part of her
yeah,
disguise. She does that because she's actually planning on killing herself.
yeah, yeah.
So she wants to make it look like she had been beaten before she was drowned or whatever she plans to do. I believe she planned to drown herself.
Hmm.
Take pills and then throw herself in the river.
Yeah,
And we're like, damn, this bitch is crazy.
yeah. No shit.
um, so when Nick finds a stash with his sister, they take like the present and they open the present and it's like these weird like dolls inside. Right. Like what the hell's wrong with this lady?
Yep. It's
So
another part of her diabolical plan.
she even has a calendar with a date when she's gonna kill herself on it.
Hmm.
So there's a scene where she is at some rundown, like, I don't know, low class motel type of place, and she sits by the pool. And then one of the random locals starts having a conversation with her
Yeah, exactly.
um, to find it just, a type of normal conversation. The lady's pretty astute, so she does see that, at least figures out that she had been hit in the eye, and she doesn't seem to believe Amy's story, which is like the story in every single situation. Oh, I fell down and hit
Yeah,
myself. Okay,
exactly.
nobody believes
Yeah,
that shit. Like, who lands
exactly.
face first on anything?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? The only time I could think of I ever see people landing face first is when they're trying to perform some type of stunt,
yeah,
like grinding off of a railing or something like that. Like,
yeah,
nobody trips and lands face first. That just does not happen.
yeah.
You know
Pretty
what I mean?
rarely.
Um, but anyway, she sees right through that, and Amy does admit that there was a situation where she was cheated on.
Hmm.
Um, so now the big twist. Nick is determined to figure out what's really going on.
Hmm.
Also, he's determined to get a lawyer, and the lawyer that he wants is like this big time lawyer.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, he sees
played,
an ad. He happens to see an ad for him on TV, right? And he's this, like you said, he's this big time lawyer, and he says that he happens to say in that TV clip that he sees that he would be Nick's lawyer.
yes, and his lawyer is played by Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
Um, so he goes to New York, and while he's there, he's also doing some investigations of his own. Um, so he does go. He meets with the lawyer. He tells the lawyer his story. The lawyer laughs at his story because it
Yeah.
sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he sees that Nick is sincere, so he takes the case, or at least considers it.
Yeah.
So or not Ben, Nick then meets with Tommy, and Tommy describes his relationship with Amy, and it's very similar to what Nick had gone through. Like, Tommy didn't really see himself as anyone particularly high in society, or he didn't have like status enough to be dating a chick like Amy, who's
Yeah.
a trust fund girl, has like really high standards. And I think we even allude at some point in the movie where Nick says, "Oh yeah, she has really high standards,"
Yeah.
um, which is code for bitch, right?
Yeah.
Lots of code for bitch, but
Yeah.
um, so he explains that he felt manipulated by Amy, and Amy basically crafted this story that he had raped her. And Tommy tells a very convincing story that sounds eerily similar to what's going on with Nick's character,
Yeah.
which makes us, the audience, believe, wow, Amy's a manipulative bitch, isn't she?
Yeah. And you tell like given what's being revealed in the movie now, like it's gets increasingly obvious as the movie progresses that he's the one telling the truth, and she did this super fucking elaborate setup to frame him for raping her, and that negatively affected him for the rest of his life.
So, next scene, we got Amy and that woman she met by the pool are watching like a news show. And the news show that they're watching, I know is supposed to be mimicking like a show that actually came on in the US. I don't know if it's still a thing, but the lady looks just like the lady that was on the show,
Oh,
talks
okay.
about the same things, which are like murder cases and missing persons cases. Um, I don't even know if she still does the show anymore. I wish I knew the name of this lady's show, but anyway, I know they're trying to mimic that. So
It's kind
they're
of
actually,
standard sensationalism news a bit.
yeah, I forgot the name of her show though. The name of her show is her name, and I
Okay.
forgot her name. But she did a lot of coverage of like the Casey Anthony case, and just like those types of cases.
Who's
But
Casey Anthony?
Casey Anthony was that mother who had killed her child by accident,
Is
and
that
their trial was like super public, and everyone was talking about it.
Oh, okay. That's not the one I heard of where uh a woman killed her children and then said that some black guys did it. That's a
No.
totally different one.
Is it this? Well, this one, in the Casey Anthony case, I believe she buried one of the kid. It was just one kid, and then
Okay.
they found the kid. But they said that was a pretty complex case, and I remember she got off, which is kind
Okay.
of crazy.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah. So they're watching the show, and um, the lady makes a critique because the show is actually about Amy.
Right.
So they're covering that case. And her critique is, oh, that lady's just a rich bitch.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Amy gets pissed off, and behind her back, she spits in her drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get some more coverage of the case from that lady, and they're calling it twincest
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're trying to paint a picture that him and his sister are too close.
They got a pretty close relationship, probably too close.
Yeah, so at this point, Amy is enjoying herself too much, so she removes the kill self post-it note from the calendar.
Yeah.
Um, the next thing that happens is Nick goes out and talks to NPH about his past relationship with Amy. NPH is Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah.
Um, and he gets the complete opposite reaction. Um, so instead of him having, as he was expecting to talk to him, and then he was going to tell him how much of a bullshit psychotic person she was.
Yeah.
But the exact opposite happens when he talks to NPH, and NPH gets offended.
Yeah.
His
The
name is
wife is
Desi.
missing and you're coming and talking to me.
Yeah. So it doesn't pan out. So, and that was I think her first boyfriend or his first girlfriend or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So he's traveling back in town. There's like a shit ton of people hanging out at his bar. And he tries to sneak past that. And we get a little scene about the detective talking about the case. And the detective is having doubts that Nick had done this because she's having doubts because some of the evidence just doesn't add up.
Is this like is this at the point where she switched to suspecting him because they found more evidence and they wanted to arrest him, or has that not happened yet? Like it's not the point where she did that and then she changed her mind back?
No, she's having doubts because they're pushing because of the narrative that they're pushing, and just some of the evidence doesn't line up.
Right.
I don't think they go into specifics, but I just that's what I wrote in the notes. Detective has doubts.
Okay.
So next thing we see Amy, she's at some type of little amusement place playing mini golf. And while she's retrieving a ball, like a big fat wad of money falls out. And I guess those Hicks. It's like the lady and the dude see that wad and she tries to tell him, oh, it's only ones.
Yeah.
So she goes. We see a scene where she's back in her motel room and she's counting the cash. And she's like freaking out over little noises here and there.
Yeah.
Kind of paranoid. Um, so while Amy's cleaning up the place, they knock on the door and she gets jacked.
Yep.
So they jack her money, they find the money, and they're confident that she's not going to call the cops
Yep.
because they see that she has her hair dyed and it seems like she's trying to lay low.
Hmm.
And then they probably think that she stole the money herself.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's desperate. Um, she ends up sleeping in the parking lot in her car. And next we cut to Ben Affleck, and he's basically being trained by his lawyer because he's going to go on camera again um, to talk to get interviewed. And he's trying to clean his image up because we get all this media coverage of him that's very negative. You know. So he's being trained by the lawyer on how to respond to questions. And one of the reasons why is he wants to preempt his side piece coming out
Hmm.
about the relationship. Um,
And he wants him to, the lawyer wants him to reveal that publicly because he knows from his experience that she is going to be pressured to do that so much that she's going to, and he wants him to beat her to it.
yeah. So Amy goes to a casino in another scene, and she calls NPH, Neil Patrick Harris, and he shows up. And he sets her up pretty nicely.
Hmm.
So he doesn't tell anybody, and we find out that he gets manipulated by her again. But
Yeah,
he
for
sets her
sure.
up in a place, a secure place, and with money and everything else. Next thing we know, Nick's side piece goes public, and this totally screws up their plans.
And I like her uh, when Amy sees this report on the news. I like her line. She says, "Why is she dressed like a babysitter?" Because they made her look like fucking Amish. Whereas when she was like in the scene before with Ben Affleck, she was like all slutty and hot and all that.
Yeah, it's funny because we don't know this, but she has seen her before. So even then, she knows that this is abnormal wear for her.
Yeah,
This is not something she would normally wear. So it sounds like it's something that maybe the parents set up or something, because it
yeah,
seems like the parents might have been involved in that, or else she may have went to the parents, or because the parents also condemn him at this event.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so everything they trained for ends up being moot, but Ben Affleck, Nick believes that he can handle it.
mm,
And we're thinking like, really, this guy, he's been screwing up everything all along. He's going to be able to handle this. So he ends up doing the interview. We don't get to see it right away. They just film it, and he believes he does awesome or whatever.
hmm,
But so back with Amy, she's at NPH's lake house. So he's rich. He's also creepy.
yeah,
And everything in the house is recorded.
yeah,
So I guess one of Amy's first things is to check out the cameras and seeing what's being recorded.
yeah.
Um,
If he hadn't told her that, he would have. discovered all the manipulative fake shit that she's doing.
Yeah. Well, she uses these things like she's smart. She uses those cameras to her advantage. But
Yep.
anyway, we cut back to Nick, and he actually does pretty damn good in his interview.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly well. Which basically he admits to being like a cheating bastard.
Yep. And
Um,
he figured out how to remedy the situation, even though the lawyer changed his mind, and said that he should not talk to this Kathy, whatever her name is, person for the news because his side piece beat him to that, and he thinks it's a bad situation now because it'll look like he's just trying to cover it up.
mhm. But there is one important piece of information that we get from this interview. He admits, he says that he is a con man and that the whole initial meeting was an act, but he wants to live up to be that man that he set up, even
Yeah,
though this itself is a con.
yeah,
So
exactly.
he's trying to play her game, and he actually does it pretty damn well here.
Yeah, exactly.
So Amy sees this interview, and this totally changes her outlook on things, right?
Yeah.
As it's because of this interview that certain things happen. So um, now that Amy's in her situation, she needs to figure out how to get out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
she basically strings him along by
Yep.
manipulating him and seducing him. And during this, the cops find the stash.
Yeah.
So this is a big issue, and he goes into an interrogation, and then he is arrested. Um, I wrote Desi and Amy have a weird encounter, but that's basically any encounter that they have. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it had like um, like what you do, like kissed him and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, let's continue this later," or he does whatever he does, and anyway, oh, the weird encounter I wrote was because like they kissed and she was like really rough about it,
Oh, yeah.
and like she bloodied her lip from it or his lip. And anyway, after he left, she does this whole scene in front of his cameras, like she had been abused or battered,
Mm-hmm.
and she plays this out for his video camera. So we're like, okay, I see, I see
He's
something's
planning
gonna happen
something.
here. Yeah,
Yep.
something's gonna happen. So Nick gets out on bond, and when he is driven by his lawyers, he's like, "Yeah, I did my own manipulating in that video,
Yeah.
in that interview."
Yep.
So he knows that he's trying to get her to come out, and he's pretty damn sure that she is out there somewhere and she planned this.
Yeah.
During one scene where Amy's looking at a mirror, she uses a wine bottle as a dildo and rams herself with it.
Mm-hmm. And rapes herself.
Rapes herself with a wine bottle. Um, like I was like, okay, that's weird, strange. It makes
Mm-hmm.
sense later on, but they're like,
Yep.
oh, crazy bitch.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know where I wrote this down, but the note is octopus and Scrabble in Greece. Oh, that's right. That's what Desi
Oh, yeah. That's what he
had
suggests. Yeah.
he had aspirations
Yeah.
of eating octopus and playing Scrabble in Greece.
Yeah.
Like that sounds like the most boring as shit you can do in Greece, but that's Desi for you.
I'd want to go see some ancient Greek ruins.
I'm not gonna. I'm here. I'm gonna channel Dave Chappelle a little bit here. Okay, but that
Yeah.
is the whitest shit that someone could say.
That's so true.
Like, come on here. Only a fucking nerdy ass white person would say that shit. Like, that's. I'm just channeling Dave Chappelle. I know he would probably say the same thing.
Yeah,
That is an activity that can only come from the mind of a white person. I'm sorry.
yeah. I'd say like upper class white person specifically too. I wouldn't think of shit like that. Although my
Yeah.
mom does like Scrabble, so there's that.
Okay, so NPH comes back. Moraine gets it on with him, and yeah, they have sex, and then during the sex, she
Fucking
slits
most
his
horrifying
throat.
moment in all of movies.
I was like, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
While he was on top, like right when he jizzed,
yeah. She timed
she
it.
slits his throat, and then there's like blood everywhere, and she's like, whatever. Like, Jesus
She's like
Christ.
enjoying his blood splaying on her or spraying on
Yeah,
her.
it's almost like she's a vampire from Blade. Like,
Exactly.
Jesus. So she's all bloody, and then she purposefully like wanted to get bloody,
Yeah,
which is the gross part. This
yeah,
is just a show. Um,
yeah. I remember.
so
I'm never gonna forget the first time I saw this movie because I've read the book, but I didn't read the book until after the first time I saw the movie. So
oh, there's a book.
yeah. Oh, dude, you should read the book. It's awesome. That author, Gillian Flynn, is awesome in general too.
Okay,
I
I'll have to put this on my list.
Yeah. But like the first time I saw it, I remember I I'd gotten baked with my friend and we were watching this movie. So this moment happened and we were both like, "Holy fuck! What the hell?" Ah!
Yeah,
Oh!
that was crazy.
Ah!
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, this is like the cementation of psycho bitch.
Hmm.
It's like the height of psycho bitchiness just
Yeah.
occurred. And then she shows up at the house, and Nick mutters under his belt or his breath and calls her a bitch.
Hmm.
I think he he doesn't do this passive aggressively. He words it so that she could see his mouth saying it.
Yeah.
He calls her a bitch.
Yeah.
She shows up, and this is during like their interview with the
He
police.
says that like into her ears so only she can hear him. That's like one of the funniest parts of the movie when she runs into his arms all covered in blood and he's like he knows she just did some fucking crazy shit. So he says,
Yeah.
"You fucking bitch."
So next we get a scene where she's kind of debriefing the police and telling her what happened. And I'm just like shaking my head during this whole thing. And I feel really bad for Ben Affleck. And they go home together. It's like, Jesus, this is crazy.
That part in the like when she first gets discovered when she's at the hospital interviewing the cops and stuff like that before she goes home with him. That part is fucking insane and intense too.
Yeah, because she just looks intense.
Yeah, and that's the part also where you can tell that one really good cop is not buying her stories, and she's the only one who's actually asking her critical questions. All the other cops in the room, they just have this mindset: we're gonna be gentle with you. We know you've gone through this hardship, and she's the only one who's skeptical.
Yeah, so I think the worst part about this is that Ben goes home, or Nick goes home, and has to sleep in the same house with this psycho bitch.
Yeah, She's like
Um,
trying to get him to come and sleep in her bed. It's like,
he's
I'm
not
not
having
going
it.
anywhere near you, bitch.
Yeah, freaking crazy.
Yeah,
Um, and then they have like some type of coming home party,
yeah,
and he's like not having it. Eventually, he meets up with the lawyer and the detective, and he basically talks to them. It's like, hey, this is a bad situation here. I do not want to live with this psycho bitch. There has to be something that could be done.
mm-hmm.
And the lawyer's like, well, nothing
He
really I can
won.
do here.
Yeah,
And the cop was like, well, I got removed from the case. I can't even investigate this anymore.
yeah,
So, they're at home, and uh, man, this has got to be the worst shit ever. But it's like the masks are off when they're at home. So he obviously hates her.
but like at first when like he takes his mask of appearance off as soon as they get into the house, but she doesn't yet because she doesn't trust him and thinks he's bugged. So she doesn't admit what's actually happened until they're in the shower, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah, so they have a frank conversation, and she manipulates him um, by the credit card debts that were
Yeah,
made. Like she manipulates him into saying that because if these were investigated, they find out that it was full of shit, right?
yeah.
So she manipulates him with
Like she
that,
bought a whole bunch of stuff, making it look like he was buying it.
right?
And he had no fucking idea that she was buying a whole bunch of shit and storing it in his father's garage. And then it makes him look at one more thing that makes him look even worse because it looks like he's spending all this money and buying all this shit well like with well paying not paying attention to his wife, and it makes it look like he was planning to kill his wife so he would have this man cave set up after she's dead.
Because the man cave was supposed to be part of the motive
Yeah,
for killing or getting rid of her, at least. But man, so the situation de-escalates, not de-escalates, escalates. Um, they end up going to the media and having an interview, and he interviews with that same lady, and he basically calls her out on her bullshit about framing him as this incest loving, uh, um, all the negative shit that she said. And she's like, oh, that's just how we do our things here, or
yeah,
whatever. So after that interview, he slams her into a wall
yep.
because
And
she's
like
just,
this is one of the things that they show. That's a brilliant way of how they shift perspectives because that's one of the moments when he gets violent with her that they
mm,
show earlier in the movie, and then they show again in this context, like that part where he pushes her onto the ground earlier.
mm,
Like they show this part too from the perspective where we know that she's fucking psycho now, and he's pushing her against the wall because she just said, you're gonna be with me forever. I'm forcing you to be with me forever. Sorry.
mm. We also find out that the situation with the kids was flipped. So in her diary, she said that he was the one that didn't want to have kids, but it was all actually the opposite situation.
Yeah,
She was the one that didn't want to have kids.
yeah.
Um, so he talks to his sister and says that he's basically has nothing. He has no way to get out of it. And she had told him that she was pregnant, and
Even though he says, I never touched you. So she like stole his sperm somehow.
She either stole his sperm or that's NPH's jizz.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Because he says that, oh yeah, I'll test and we'll see. I'll just have a test, and then what did she use as leverage to stop him from doing a paternity test?
I think I don't remember for sure, but I think it's that she said that it would make him look too bad because he wouldn't want
Oh,
to
because she was,
he wouldn't want to make it even look like he's even thinking about leaving his wife who had gone
had
missing
been
and
raped
apparently had been raped and
and
attempted to be
kidnapped.
murdered. Yeah.
Yeah, he would get destroyed in the media. I don't know. That almost seems worth it.
Yeah. It reminds me of that part, like when that cop asks the her partner, he says something like she split it, yeah, because she's saying all these lies about how he was tying her up and torturing her, Desi was,
Hmm.
all the
Hmm.
time. And so that one cop says she slit his throat with a box cutter, and then the good cop says, how did she get her hands on a box cutter when she was tied up the whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like she knows it's bullshit.
Yeah.
So the ending basically is he has to stay with this crazy bitch for 18 years.
Yeah. Fuck. Ah.
Um,
Like the last shot of the movie is like fucking terrifying too, because it goes back to it's one of those movies that I love it when movies do this, where it's bookended. It starts at the moment it ends with, what what have we done to each other, what will we do, is Ben Affleck's line, and then you see in full context Rosemond Pike with like her head resting on his chest or something like that, and she's looking up at him with her fucking dark shark eyes, psychopath stare, and it makes like fucking shivers run down my spine, man.
well, he gets put in the worst situation ever,
Yeah,
which is, I guess, a bad ending. Bad
yeah,
in respect to not a happy ending,
yeah,
a
yeah,
very unhappy ending.
yeah.
Not unlike Seven.
Hmm.
Two movies with unhappy bad endings.
Yeah, definitely.
I kind of should have expected that here, but I wasn't
Yeah.
really. I thought I was like, man, Ben Affleck's gonna win here, and then no.
Nope.
Wow, it's horrifying.
Fucking psychopathic woman gets away with murder and forces her husband, who knows that she's a fucking evil psychopath who's gotten away with murder, to be with her forever and raise a fucking child with this monster.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
I feel like there could have been more options for Ben Affleck. Like he could have met up with the lawyer again, and I don't know. Uh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And that, like I was saying, it's interesting that this movie, in the first half of it, builds Ben Affleck's character to be this like a slow drip of, oh, this guy is unlikable asshole who has something to do with this murder or her going missing, until they switch it right in the beginning, and then you're rooting for him to prevail. Because it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we finally believe him that his missing wife is crazy. I think the turning point was the stash, right? Because he
Hmm.
didn't buy that shit, and they left the stash there. It's like, what the hell? And I think the stash was kind of like, okay, something's going on here. Because I know they talk about the receipts from the credit cards, and it's like, I don't know where all this stuff is. You're
Yep.
like, oh. And you look at the stash, it's like, what the hell's this? So it's like, okay, something strange is going on here. But man, is this movie nuts?
Yeah, man.
She does a very good job. I'm not sure how she's going to play a Moraine. I don't know how you go to psychopath to like like an Aes Sedai who's hardcore over a cause to save the world.
She's a
That's
good
like
actor,
a
man. I
well, she
know.
can act. Like
Yeah.
yeah, she definitely did a good job here. Because she does the accents too. Because she's British, she's doing the American accent, and then she was doing like a Southern accent when she was trying to disguise herself. So
Hmm.
usually, someone who could do accents has are good actors typically.
Yeah.
But man, um, this makes me look forward more to the Wheel of Time. Hopefully, they don't screw it up.
Yeah.
It's like
Hopefully it's awesome
use your talent to your utmost. You know,
for
don't write
sure.
them shitty lines. Um, do right by the talent that you have, which is weird because I'm wondering because she's going to be gone after book five for quite a long time. So I don't know
Right.
how they're going to do that in the show. That's funny. I know. I'm pretty sure she probably knows this by now.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
oh, I'm going to be missing for a lot of the series. It'll show up at the end from the death, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with this show. But I'm glad to hear that they renewed it for a second season. Haven't even aired the first one yet.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I'm looking for it. I'm pretty sure that they're going to come out with this thing this year.
Yeah, that's what Daniel Green was saying, right?
Yeah, because when it comes out, I think we should do like, release a stream about it.
You want to do like a chat of each episode?
I think that we could at least talk about like do our normal topics, and then like at the end we could talk about the episode. Because I don't know how it's gonna work if they're gonna just drop all the episodes at
Yeah.
once, or if they're gonna like release them. My guess is since it's streaming, they're gonna drop everything on us.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. That's how Amazon does it, I believe. Like all their own original shows, they just put everything out there.
Right.
So, yeah, we can cover like a couple different episodes. Say, hey, we're gonna do this topic, and then we'll watch, episode blah blah blah, and then we'll talk about that at the end. Kind of
Cool.
like when we talk about like, oh, have you been reading? Well, we can throw in some Wheel of Time also.
Okay.
All right, man. So I give this a definite watch. Um,
Me too.
Anybody who loves movies needs to watch this.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies because like I said, I find it more terrifying than any horror movie I've seen, even though I'm a big fan of horror and I love horror movies because it's not it's different from that kind of supernatural horror, which I also really like. But it's like more. This isn't even actually a horror movie, obviously, but it's so horrifying to me because it could actually happen, and shit like this probably has happened multiple times in real life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like anytime you think of serial killers who have had a double life and that their significant others never known about that, it's
Yeah.
like, wow, you've been living with a serial killer and not even knowing it. But this is definitely different because he knows about how much of a psycho she is. So it's definitely a different situation. But wow, it's horrifying just to think about he has to live with that. And the other horrifying thing is you don't know, like he might even have to stay quiet because she might plot to kill him.
Exactly.
So that's probably the biggest thing looming over his head. She's that meticulous that she'd probably has would have a plan to kill him if he didn't follow her lead on this happy little family that's
Yeah.
totally
Him
screwed
have
up.
him having talked about divorcing her so much is one of the main reasons that she did this whole fucking elaborate scheme in the first place, right?
Well, the crazy thing is that she planned to kill herself. Like she was
Yeah. Yeah.
she was so into this thing
Mhm.
because it makes me think of, yeah, this it seems plausible to me because there are definitely people who do murder suicides or, based off of their partner doing something wrong or that they kill the partner and then they kill themselves. In this case, it was ruin the other person's life as much as I could, short of killing them, and
Exactly.
then commit suicide. Um, and this was like it was like a revenge suicide. So she was going to get revenge on him for cheating, and she was going to kill herself in the process, which seems a bit extreme, but not as extreme as we would think in the modern day of things where people do crazy stuff and then kill themselves afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so if she's going to go through all of this, we know she's a murderer, and Ben Affleck probably believes that she's a murderer. Um, it behooves him in order for self-preservation to follow along with the psychotic plan
Right.
because he would have no leverage whatsoever. Um, she's in total control of everything. And he is not as good as chess player as she is.
No,
It's just,
certainly not.
so
She's
I
like
don't
an
think he,
evil, psychopathic criminal mastermind.
so yeah, that he wouldn't be able to outsmart her. Like that's why he had a team of people and she did all this shit by herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, he's screwed. He's definitely screwed.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a downer ending there.
Definitely. I like that. I like endings like that when the bad guy wins.
Yeah, bad guy win endings are definitely subversive.
Yeah.
Um, that's just storytelling in a nutshell. The good guy usually always wins. And when the bad guy wins, it's shocking and horrifying.
Exactly.
And that's basically how you can describe the ending of this movie,
For
shocking and
sure.
horrifying.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Um, so, yes, I would give this. Um, this is a must see, so I'll give it a 5 out of 5.
I do
I think
too.
everybody who loves movies should watch this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
And read the book too. As is often the case, I'd say the book is even better. The movie
really?
actually the movie actually does not deviate very far from the book though.
So it's a very, very, very good adaptation of the
Yeah,
original source.
it's an excellent adaptation, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll try to remember to put this on my list. As I was like, damn, this is a crazy ass movie. I'm sure that the book goes into far more detail.
Yeah.
So I think I would look forward to that. I have to see if I can find an audiobook of that. I'm just going to put on pause for about 10 seconds here while I let loose.
Okay.
Well, actually, I can let loose. It's just the flush that I don't care for.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you had to fart.
Oh no, no, no! I wouldn't have muted for that.
Oh, okay.
It's just the flush because it's just so loud and annoying.
Yeah, 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 for
Because these are
sure.
automated toilets here, and it's just loud and annoying. And I don't. Yeah, farts are loud, but they're also funny, so they get a
Yeah.
pass.
Okay.
Um, So yes, everybody watch this. We give it 2 thumbs up, 5 stars. Wow, freaking crazy movie,
Yeah,
man.
I know, right?
um, is that all of David Fincher's movies are like this, or because man,
Well,
I
yeah,
guess
I don't think I've seen all of them, but like we were talking about before, like this is one of my, I guess I would say like this one, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Fight Club are my favorite David Fincher movies. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Fight Club. But yeah, all of these and Seven are similar in that way. I haven't seen all of David Fincher's movies, but I've seen a few others that are not like this as much. I think he did that movie Zodiac about the Zodiac killer, and I was actually kind of disappointed by that one.
well, yeah, well, it's a real story, right? So it kind of has to be real with that.
Yeah,
Um, I have not seen Zodiac, so I have no comment on that one.
it's worth watching. It's my least favorite David Fincher movie that I've seen though.
Okay. Well, I know you wanted to cover Fight Club on your own channel, so
Yeah.
I'll stay away from that. As far as what we're going to talk about next week, we have a couple options. So um, we can either, I think I'm ready for a Watt.
Okay.
Um,
Uh, next week we're gonna talk with Tristram about Before They Are Hanged, though, right?
oh,
Or
so yeah. So we're going to have to, Watt will have to be in 2 weeks or three. I
or
have
I
to
could
ask him.
see, or I could rearrange that and see if like the
No, before Where Hanged
okay,
takes precedence because that was coming first anyway. You just had to
okay,
reschedule it. So if not what, we can talk about. Here's what I want you to do when, and I'm sure it's not going to be that terribly hard. Um, as I know we're already talking about UFOs and stuff. So
yeah, tomorrow.
yeah, so that's on another strand there. I want you to finish Castlevania. So I'm thinking,
Oh, that's funny. I was actually thinking earlier today. I had the thought, I should suggest to Dusty that we should talk about the Castlevania series, and that'll encourage me to watch it sooner.
yeah, so I want you to watch it. So here's what we'll do. We'll talk about season one.
Okay, I'll rewatch that one.
Yeah, and then I think we'll go ahead and keep this one on our radar so that we can cover each season in a different episode.
Good idea.
So that will be what we'll talk about if I don't have a Wheel of Time book ready. We could talk about that.
Good
So that's
idea.
like that's four different streams right there.
Cool.
Yeah, because I want you to get through it. Season two is amazing. That's all I'm gonna
There
say.
aren't that many episodes per season, I think, right?
Well, the first season was very short. So the
Yeah.
first season is only 4 episodes, which is a
Okay.
total of maybe 80 minutes.
Yeah, they're only like
Uh,
half an hour or so each, right?
yeah, about half hour. But then the subsequent the series, they're all 10, I believe. So the first is four, and the rest are 10. But they go by
Okay.
so quick, man. Like,
Yeah, I bet.
because they're real short. Each episode's short, so like in one sitting, I'll watch like 4 or 5 episodes, just like half of a season.
Okay.
I don't think it would be too big of an issue. It's just like we did the Blood of Zeus. They're kind of similar in length to that series.
Yeah.
But man, Castlevania season two, I love it. But once you get through it, I love the cynical humor in the series. The badass fight scenes are amazing.
For sure.
I like it better than the Blood of Zeus. That's just because
Yeah,
I'm way more
I
familiar.
like season one more than Blood of Zeus for sure too. Yeah.
Well, I'm way more familiar with the source material, so I have like probably a little bit unique insights about that. But yeah, we could talk about season one next week if you're up for that.
Sounds good, man.
All right, cool. So I know we haven't convened in a while. So what have you read?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, I'm reading Before They're Hanged, which is book two in the grimdark fantasy series called the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, which uh, you and Tristram and I talked about the first one, and yeah, I like as happens with the well, I guess we'll talk about it more when we do the chat, but yeah, like often as often happens with me when I reread a really good book, I like it even more and notice things that I missed the first time.
One question: have you listened to any of the audiobooks in this series, or at least from the Blade itself, the first trilogy?
Yeah, I listened to the first time I read them, I listened to all three of them as audiobooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just like whenever now that I'm going through it, whenever he makes like some funny sound effects, I put a bookmark on it.
That's
He's
good.
always making he's always into his sound effects, man. That's what I like
Yeah.
about this. And he has some really it's really I love it when you're listening to a book and the voices are so diverse, it's hard to believe that they're coming from a single person.
Yeah. I was
And I
noticing
kind of
that.
forget that. I completely forget that. I was like, oh yeah, there's one guy here doing all these voices, and
Yeah,
they're
I know,
so
right?
distinct and different
Like
that
Logan and
it's
Glokta sound totally different, and all the other characters too.
yeah, Logan, Glockta, Giselle, um, Longfoot, Baez, like yeah, Gurkish people have different accents.
Hmm.
Pharaoh sounds very different from anyone else.
Yep.
Pharaoh sounds almost well. Another one that sounds very different is the redheaded practical. Well, even just the practicals sound different. Like Severod sounds way different from Frost.
Yeah.
So, like all the voices are like even the Prince Ladislaw. I was like, man, this guy sounds so freaking pretentious.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's great. The guy's excellent at character reading. So if you haven't listened to him, if you read the books before and you're like me, you like alternating media, I like going from listening to reading. In this case, I just went straight to listening again um, because of the convenience, and I just enjoy this narrator. He's just a good narrator, and I can't quite read as fast as you, so I gotta listen because it's a bit more speedier for me to get through. But yeah, it's good stuff. But
Definitely.
in this second listen, every time he makes like a grunt, I'm like bookmarking it. So I'm thinking of just making a montage of grunts and weird sounds that he
Yeah.
makes. But yeah, at least I'm trying. I know I've probably missed a bunch of them, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. And what else did you have under your belt?
Well, today I started reading um, Dark Dawn, which is book three of Nevernight. Did you say
Mm.
you read that one recently?
Yeah, I finished it recently.
Oh, cool.
It's the ending's good.
I'm about halfway through. So far, it's just as awesome as book 1 and 2 to me.
Oh,
I'm
did you
glad that
get
he.
to the part? Oh man, because I think Mr. Kindly is just one of my favorite characters. But um, did you get to the part where Mr. Kindly doesn't know the expression "tits up"?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, you'll get there. It's freaking hilarious
Okay.
because there's a lot of wordplay in the series, and they get really like funny and
Yeah.
cynical about it.
Yeah, that author Jay Kristoff, is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a really great author. And we were talking before about how great his writing is.
It's funny and cynical, and
Yeah.
it's dark. There's a lot of dark humor in the series. His sex scenes are ridiculous.
Yep. And of course, all the fighting and killing is
Well, yeah,
awesome
it's
and
just
dark too.
as detailed. He puts as much detail as the sex scenes that he does in his fighting scenes.
Exactly. Yeah. And the characters like are so interesting too. And like the main character, Mia, gets more interesting as the series progresses.
Yeah, there's a total twist in the second book that
Yeah.
her outlook gets. It's well, basically the whole series is a revenge story,
Yeah.
but that revenge seems not it like gets changed, and the context of who she wants to kill is different,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like some realizations that are made throughout the story. It's like, oh, uh, your parents were kind of crappy, so do you still want to avenge their deaths?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an interesting story, I'll
For
say.
sure. For sure. Yeah. I'm glad that you turned me on to those. That's a fucking awesome series. I love it.
Well, now that you've gone through that, you have to call crowds of people gentle friends.
Yeah. Gentle friends.
um, but yeah, it's good stuff. I'm glad
Yeah.
that you enjoyed Nevernight and you're almost finished with the series. The ending is pretty crazy.
I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
excited to
you'll
finish
see.
reading it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's
So
definitely
go ahead.
yeah, it's definitely an escalation. Um, you can see the escalation that's happening. And it's crazy, like the coolest thing, like, oh man, this Church of Lady Murder is
Yeah. I
pretty
love that.
awesome. And then you find
Yeah.
out that they're corrupt as fuck. It's
Yeah.
like fuck.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
makes you feel bad because you like in the first book I genuinely like some of the teachers. And then you're like, oh no, the teachers are not good. They're bad
Yeah.
people. That kind of sucks.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, you'll see. It gets pretty damn. Well, it is awesome. It's under. I think the series is definitely underrated.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I was looking at the Reddit because Reddit has a list of series that people voted for, and this is from 2019, and I actually used that list to go and find fantasy books to read.
Yeah. I remember you told me that.
Yeah, and Dark Nevernight is on the bottom of that list.
Hmm. Where is
And
where is Broken Earth? Because we were talking the other day. Because you
Broken
and I
Earth
have
is
both
rated
read it.
too high. It's probably in the top 30, I think.
Oh wow. Yeah, you and I were talking because I watched that Legendarium episode about the third book in the Broken Earth trilogy the other
Oh, I
day.
gotta
About
listen
how
to that
it's
episode. I
so
haven't listened to it yet.
yeah, it's good. They don't criticize it as harshly as I do, but they do like they give a lot of the same criticisms that I have of the third book. And like I was saying the other day, I liked book 1, but I thought book 2 and 3 were kind of boring, and all three of those books have won multiple science fiction awards. I think, even though it's
Well,
kind of
they all won Hugo Awards, from what I understand.
right.
I was like, yeah. I was like, first book is good. And the second and third, it's like you had something great going here, and it just kind of got stale.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. It is what it is. You know, some people can't keep up with that momentum. Just so happens to have, and hated the ending to the
Yeah, me
third
too.
book. I
Yeah, me
thought,
too.
really, this, like, I liked that they resolved the big problem. I just didn't like who the antagonist of the story was. It just stupid. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
me
I'm gonna
neither.
fight my own daughter. Oh yeah, so stupid. I
Yeah,
just hated the
exactly.
daughter character. It was so dumb. Like that whole half of the story, I just did not like.
Yeah. Oh, well, and like you kind of alluded to there too, I thought the plot in especially in book 2 and 3 was phenomenally slow moving to me.
Well, it's because there was no travel. Because if you remember the first book, there was a lot of travel and
Right.
world building, and the characters weren't like just stuck in one place. Second and third book, the characters are mostly just stuck in one setting.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, the second book, she's just stuck living with that community for the whole book. Second book is like, oh, I'm still with this community, but we're going to try to go to this other place.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, it was just not as good.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that was like the
definitely.
most shocking part of the book happened in the first book, where
Exactly. By far. By
they have
far.
like these,
Like usually if a series continues to be good
like
or gets
it blew
better,
its
there's an
load in the first
awesome.
book.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like the like all the there that was by far the most exciting twist. Like usually if a series is really good,
Mhm.
there will be like after that first twist, things will get even more complex and intense and there will be
Yeah.
even more and bigger twists as the series progresses, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, because I know one of the big shocking moments in the first book was like, oh yeah, we take these origins and they're basically we hollow them out until they're vegetable in a vegetative state, and we just have them control fucking earthquakes, and they're our slaves, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was like the most shocking thing about all three books. I was like, oh man, that's freaking horrible. And then
Well,
you
I thought the
have
I thought the even more shocking thing was that this what we thought was one perspective is
oh,
actually like
the
three
character,
perspectives.
yeah.
Yeah,
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 it's one character. It's different names, but it's all the same person.
yeah.
And three different stages of their life.
And that's one thing that people often comment on too. That writing style is kind of confusing. Like it's
Oh yeah.
switching tenses.
Yeah, it was very confusing for me. Like I couldn't really get entirely what was going on
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of that. And it felt really just like jarring to have to switch between these perspectives. And it was hard to just figure out what was going on. Well, the second book, it was a bit easier because at the end of the first book, they kind of reference, like, oh, yeah, these characters are all the same.
exactly.
But yeah, at first, you're like, what the hell's going on here? Why is this relevant?
Yeah,
Because none of
yeah,
these
exactly.
characters seem to meet each other, which
Yeah,
is usually when you have like three point of views, you have a meeting of these characters at some point in time in the book. But
yeah,
like, huh.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't think the first book was decent. Other two, I think I gave 3 stars apiece. Like I didn't like the ending to the series at all.
I think I might have given all three books the same ratings.
All three, what, 3 stars?
No, I mean same as you. Like I think I gave the first one 4 and the second two 3. I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right for me. But oh, what else did you read there?
So yesterday I wanted to read some more philosophy, so I read one of one of the famous ancient philosophical texts, which was Aristotle's book called Nicomachean Ethics, which is obviously his book about his whole ethical system. And it's interesting because he goes into what virtues are, how to find happiness, what happiness is, how involved people should be in political life. And I kind of had similar opinions to what I often have about some ancient philosophy. Um, I think a lot of the Plato's dialogues with Socrates, those are my favorite ancient philosophical text. So with Aristotle, I thought it was interesting and definitely worth reading, but I'm I thought it was okay, not great. Like I gave that one 3 stars too, because as often happens with me when I read ancient philosophical texts, I think, yeah, some of this is pretty profound wisdom, but some of this in the context of today is just fucking dumb, or it sounds like, just standard, like these are our old fashioned traditional values of virtue and strength and being a warrior and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, so it's more like a traditional type of virtues.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
the Ben Franklin route.
Yeah. Kind of like that. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Anything
Um,
else you have read of note?
yeah. I was telling you that I just the other day finished reading Shadow Puppets, which is the third book in the Ender's Shadow series, which is kind of like as you know, a series that takes place kind of like simultaneously at the same time as the main series in the, like, I guess you call it Ender's Saga, the first one being the Ender's Game. And this
Mhm.
was Ender Shadow Puppets was the third one in this series. And I still think overall I like the main Ender's Game series of books more overall. But
Mhm.
what's interesting about all three? Well, I guess actually more specifically in the first one, Ender's Shadow, it basically takes place like during the same events that happened in Ender's Game, but it's from the perspective of the character Bean instead of Ender. Uh,
Mhm.
but then in book 2 and 3, it gets more into like what's happening with all of the other characters in Dragon Army and Ender's siblings, and this whole thing that happens at during Ender's Game about how Ender's siblings are pretending to. What I heard some weird audio there for a sec.
Oh, yeah, I
Uh,
was a fan.
okay, but we see that stuff at the end of the first book about how Ender's brother and sister, they were pretending to be these online personalities, and they built these enormous followings and were trying to take over control of Earth. So we see in this series, in book 2 and 3 in particular that I've read so far, what happens on Earth with the characters of the Dragon Army and Ender's siblings after Ender leaves, after he's been tricked into committing mass genocide of that entire alien species, and then he leaves and goes on this mission. But you know so we see like the power struggles on Earth between different countries, and it's almost more of like these books are, they're still science fiction, but they're less science fiction and they're more about like kind of war and geopolitics and like the power struggles and what what people think should be done with the members of Dragon Army now that they're not serving the purpose of fighting a war against the aliens anymore, and people competing with each other to gain control of them and stuff like that. So it's definitely a worthwhile series and interesting reading. This third one, Shadow Puppets, is interesting too, and because they're kind of different from the first one in that way, like the first one is much more similar to the first Ender's Game book. I like
Mhm.
the second and third books in this Ender's Shadow series more than the first one because they're so different from the rest of the Ender's Game books.
Yeah, if you still want to read into the Ender's universe, I also recommend the first Formic War series. So this would be the first encounter with the buggers. Um, so it's
Oh yeah, I
basically
forgot you had already read all of these. I was needlessly avoiding spoilers.
no. I haven't read the Shadow
Oh,
series.
okay.
I've read the first Formic War though,
Oh,
and I
okay.
think I don't know. They're probably a lot different because it's more like a. I would call the first Formic War more of an action thriller.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's very like quickly paced, and there's each book has a different feel to it too. So
Okay.
I think you'll enjoy it, but I'm not sure how much is actually written by Orson Scott Card because it's a co-written book. He co-wrote this with another author.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know who is taking the lead, who where. I think mainly it's Orson Scott Card's universe and probably some direction. And I think the other author is mainly steering that series. But it's worth checking out. I'll try to get those for you. They're
Cool,
interesting
man.
books.
Yeah, I do want to read those at some point. Also, I want to explore all the books in this universe at some point for sure.
Yeah. So you had anything else that you checked out this past couple weeks?
Um, I guess those are the most significant ones I can think of off the top of my head. Oh wait, other than I also finally listened to that copy of Gad Sad's book called The Consuming Instinct that you sent to me, which
Oh.
I thought it was fairly interesting and educational, but also pretty predictable. Like I've I kind of know the basics of evolutionary psychology, like a lot of the basic claims, like reciprocal altruism and all these sorts of things, and because you and I have heard some of these evolutionary psychology principles questioned by people like Chris Ryan in books like Sex at Dawn, and then other, ways that we've questioned these things from mixed mental arts. I'm skeptical of that. And then you also mentioned like how he talks about the wokeness and shit like that. I didn't really notice that much in there, but yeah, it kind of has a standard view of it.
Yeah, you could also he also does like the whole new atheist type of thing also.
Yeah, that's another thing too. He does the like, religion is evil, it's only bad, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's like I get it, but I can read a book, a pop science book that doesn't take any of that culture war bullshit into account and just kind of, explains the science of things. Like there's like an entire chapter which is like a critique of his detractors, which are like I would call a very fringe group.
Hmm.
Like I don't
Yeah, that's
understand the
yeah, it's
need
interesting
to.
because like the way he does that is interesting because like I thought, oh, this is cool. Like he's kind of doing Steelman's, like saying this is a common criticism. Here is my response to that. But that's a good point too. Like you said, he sets it up that way, but he's kind of criticizing like fringe views that not that many people actually have as criticisms of evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, it's like voices that, oh yeah, there are people that say you should instead of you should believe in witchcraft instead of something or blah 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 blah. It's like, come on, man. Like, do you even have to entertain these ridiculous views? Like, it's like, yeah, I understand, but what I guess I get is he just trying to court controversy to be edgier or something? I don't
I
know, but
don't
that's
know.
kind of like his shtick now. Is just he's kind of like a culture warrior in that respect.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I stopped paying as much attention to his YouTube channel. I used to watch every one of his podcasts and like be. I guess it was when I was probably when I was more of a militant atheist. I guess I was more of an avid follower of his.
Well, I still like I'll listen to him occasionally if he pops in on Rogan, but
Yeah, yeah. I'll watch
um,
him on that, or occasionally, like on his channel, he'll have an interview with another evolutionary psychologist or some other scientist, and it's. I usually watch those.
yeah. But I don't think I gave that book a 3 star. I don't quite remember. I just remember being annoyed at like the new atheist stuff, like anti woke stuff. I was like, man, this shtick is kind of old. You guys just need to get past it, and it's just not as big as a threat as you guys all think it is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's see. What did I read? Well, we already talked about a couple of the things we read. I read, which was Dark Dawn, which I've completed, and Before They Are Hanged, which is what I'm working on now. But the two nonfiction books I read, Cynical Theories.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember.
Uh,
Were you telling me about that, or was it Dave Rub? You were telling me recently about Dave Rubin's book, but I don't remember whether we talked about cynical theories before. I remember I told you when I read it about how terrible it was.
well, the problem with this book is that there's genuine, useful information about some of the crackpot, well, what's presented to be crackpot studies that are going on in academia, um, which I'm glad they did that research. And I already knew about how ridiculous some of it was, so it wasn't really anything that new.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my biggest issue with this book is that they manufactured a link between postmodern philosophers and these new critical theories, and their manufactured link is called quote applied postmodernism, whatever the fuck that means. Um, do you remember that? Like, oh yeah, applied postmodernism, and then they take a bunch
Yeah,
of like Foucault and Derrida quotes and say, oh yeah, this is the link.
yeah. Take
Um,
these quotes totally out of context and present them in a way that shows the opposite of the point that the authors were trying to make, and present this connection that it really doesn't actually exist.
yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I got mad like an hour into listening to the book, and I decided to re watch the podcast that they did with Thaddeus Russell, and I thought they had a pretty good dialectic there,
Yeah, yeah.
which ended up with Lindsay mostly agreeing with Thaddeus that the postmodernism, supposed postmodernism that is in use in academia is not where anything near the original, in that I think the biggest thing is its roots from the Frankfurt School, which
Yeah,
is
that's
a
the biggest and most important distinction. The so-called roots of this are much more directly linked to the Frankfurt School than post-structuralists like Foucault and Derrida, who are often called postmodernists, even though they never actually agreed with that label
yeah.
themselves.
Well, because the only thing that the postmodernists advocate for is analysis, like try to look at this in a different lens.
Hmm.
They don't
And
say,
the Frankfurt School was full of actual Marxists.
yeah, Marxist plus they had prescriptive views about things.
Hmm.
So, in which Foucault and Derrida really didn't. They were trying to find the is and not the ought.
Yeah, they
And
were
and
describing things like you said.
and these whole critical theories from what they describe are trying to apply some type of ought. But even then I find this might not be totally the case. That's why I'm trying to investigate this myself. Well, not the crazy loony ones like fat studies and all of that. I think the most
I was taught that shit in my uh sociology,
You
aka
were
social
taught fat
justice and that.
studies?
Yeah, I
So you
told you.
know a lot about all this shit then.
You're suffering from fat phobia. You make fun of fat people only because you're afraid of getting fat.
Who says
There's
that? Is that
nothing
what you
there's
keep
nothing biologically unhealthy about being fat.
is that what
Okay,
your
kids, I'm
professor
gonna
said?
show. Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
and then showed us a TED talk with this phenomenally morbidly obese woman talking about how I'm healthy the way I am. No, you're not. No, sorry, you're not.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you definitely open yourself up to other unhealthy shit from being obese. That's objectively true.
yeah. Like
That,
things, people existing on a spectrum and measuring like measurements of weight and health being somewhat inaccurate
so you
are
were taught fat studies in your sociology class?
all the fucking SJW shit, man. Like every class. Let's talk about racism and transgender people and all the like pretty much every class was about something like that.
So it was an SJW class.
Yeah,
Were there SJWs in the class?
yeah, yeah.
And
There
were there
definitely
any
were, and there.
anti-SJWs?
Yeah, I think I might have told you about this before, but it was a while ago. There was I thought it was really funny because one time one of the girls in the class questioned my teacher. And she brought up and she's Asian, and she brought up an example of how an Asian person who was a business owner who she worked for, they wouldn't she would not hire black people because she was racist and thought that black people don't work as hard as Asian people, so she didn't want to hire black people, and she only wanted to hire Asian people. And so she said, so doesn't that mean that people of color can be racist? And she said no. And she basically gave the answer of, well, it's actually not the same thing because black people are so systemically oppressed that they can't actually be racist, or if they can, it's not even possible for them to be racist to the same degree as white people ever.
That's stupid.
Yeah,
That's just ridiculous.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Well, anyway, cynical theories. I don't know. They're just really. I don't know who is leading the charge on the whole. Hey, postmodernism is because it does is the reason why we have all these insane studies groups, but you could use postmodernism for anything. I think it's just like I said earlier. Modernism was used for Nazism, it's for modern capitalism, for communism. Like the Marx school is birthed out of modernism.
Exactly.
So there's nothing inherently bad about modernism. It's what you use the tool for. It's like the same thing with a hammer. I think I remember I wrote some type of critique in a review I made of this book, and like the tenuous way that they connect postmodernism to these new theories, I made a very apt analogy. It's like saying, okay, I'm a carpenter and I made this tool called a hammer to hammer in nails.
Hmm.
Now, when you go take this hammer into an auto body shop to remove a dent, do you call this applied carpentry?
That's a good analogy.
And then when somebody hits another person in the head with said hammer, is this also applied carpentry? It's like that's basically the logic they use to attach postmodernism to these ridiculous theories.
That reminds me of um an, an a very similar analogy that Joe Rogan makes about drugs in a documentary that I saw him in about. I think it was a documentary about weed, or it was it might have been just a documentary about illegal drugs and like specifically psychedelics in general. But he was saying,
Mm.
this idea that drugs are bad is stupid. Drugs are a tool. It's like a hammer. You can use that. You can use that to build a house, or you can hit yourself in the dick with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tool. It depends on what you do with the tool.
Yeah,
And that's basically kind of what I think about these crazy like theories that they have in academia where
yeah.
I don't know, that SJW class you had is pretty horrible, but
It's pretty horrible. Yeah,
yeah, it's just stupid.
I
Um,
wa- I will. I took that class in the first place because I thought, well, I should investigate this crazy shit that people are criticizing all the time, and that I have lots of criticisms too. And I was like, well, this is pretty much exactly what I predicted.
yeah. But were there a lot
And
of people
also,
that
I
were like
stayed.
not having it in the class? Like, were you able to get the feel for the class and what they thought about this bullshit, or did
It seemed
you?
like it seemed like, but it seemed to me like, uh, well, I guess it kind of seemed to me like some people were all for believing it, and some people were skeptical, like me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, like what proportion I would say, because I didn't talk to that many people in the class, and there usually aren't that many people who ask questions. But there were people I talked to and people who asked questions in the class who were pretty obviously for it and believing this, and others who were kind of skeptical like me.
Okay, so you can have a feeling that maybe it's like 50-50, possibly.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
I don't know. It's so ridiculous.
There were definitely some, like, the what should probably be unsurprising is that it was mostly women in that class, and
Mm,
that there were like definitely a few typical SJWs in that class. Like
mhm.
there was this woman who would ask a question or comment every class, and she was like this stereotypical 20-year-old. She was like a 20-year-old white MILF who was always talking about
How
systemic
can you be a
racism.
20-year-old and a white MILF at the same time?
Well, there are lots of young MILFs here.
That are in their 20s?
Yeah,
Wow. Because
this is
usually
like,
when I think MILF, I'm thinking 35 plus.
oh, I'm just using the term literally. Mother, I'd like to.
Okay. They had kids.
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
she was like in every class she would talk about or ask questions, or often she would actually even relate her experiences of experiencing sexism and seeing people being discriminated against and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I
Yeah.
think I gave Cynical Theories 2 stars. Yeah, I was just like, this is. I just didn't feel like. I felt like it was trying to be. Like the whole book is trying to prove Jordan Peterson's moniker correct.
Yeah,
instead of
exactly.
being like an objective view that, hey, these were tools that these people used, and they're not the only ones who use these tools.
Yeah.
It's like you Trump supporters use those tools. Like they were skeptical of the meta narrative that Trump lost the election. That's like postmodernism.
Trump
Like,
is a postmodernist president. He's a
yeah,
president of the
like
postmodern
totally.
era. Yeah,
He's totally postmodern. He's probably like the most postmodern president we've ever had.
for sure. For sure.
Um, but yeah, of course, they're
Especially
not
with
going
the
to listen to that.
some of the stuff some of his bluntness pointed out that as we've talked about before, the emperor has no clothes. He's like, yeah, we're going there. We're going there to take their oil. Uh,
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm like, I was disappointed in that book,
yeah, me too.
mostly because I like some of his other work, but that book I just did not like.
Yeah, how to have impossible conversations was good, and
Yeah, that's a really
we
good
talked
book.
with him about that.
Yeah. But it is what it is. I think he
Yeah.
got too deep into the culture war stuff. I think so much so that I think he voted for Trump, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I might have heard that from you actually, but I heard it from somewhere that he voted for Trump to be against the culture war because he said he was going to ban it in government jobs or something like that.
Yeah, I guess the biggest problem I have with that is I don't know what his stance is on free speech, but I don't know. It's not a good look on people who say they're free speech absolutists and they want to ban speech in some way. It's
Yep.
almost like a type of book burning, you
He's
know.
promoting cancel culture, even though he's I'm pretty sure he's said he's almost a free speech absolutist.
Yeah, so I'm like, man, these people are such hypocrites. Like,
Yeah.
just deal with. Why can't you guys just deal with? If you guys are so against this stuff, deal with this the way that you should. Hey, yeah, you can have discourses and arguments against it, but you shouldn't support its suppression by the government.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if any of these people's feet have been held to the fire in that regard. Um, and I, like I said, I don't know if anyone's ever asked them about these critical questions about, do you think it's good to suppress speech because you
Yeah.
don't like these theories?
Yeah. Exactly.
So I don't know. That's
And
kind
this
of
little that whole book, I told you, I made detailed notes on this book because it was pissing me off so much. And I went through a whole video series on each chapter of it on my channel. But it was this is like an entire book full of confirmation bias. That's
yeah,
basically what it is.
yeah, pretty much. All right, so let's get in the second and final book because we already discussed the other books. Don't Burn This Book by Dave
Dave Rubin's book.
Rubin.
uh,
Um, I believe I've made a lot of like little side like updates. Like in Goodreads, you can make updates about what you've read, and every
right.
time I heard something super ridiculous, I made an update about it.
That's a good idea.
But I'm not going to say that the whole book sucks. There's actually some genuine good things in this book. Um, I really liked, and this happens usually with most books that I read that are from characters I don't typically like that much. But for his book, I'll tell you the pros. I really like where he got in behind the scenes and talked about his personal life a bit.
Yeah.
He had a lot of positive messaging at the end of the book, which I probably think stems from his time being with Peterson on the tour.
Yeah.
So there was
He does talk about that constantly too. I love Jordan Peterson. He's the best. He's changed my life. I don't know why I
Well,
just did that voice. He doesn't sound like that at all. Listen,
yeah,
guys, Jordan Peterson, he's really changing minds and he's changing the world.
there you go. There's
Mm.
Ruben. But yeah,
Listen,
there's some
I've got a
positives.
long track record of being right on this stuff, okay? Trump's gonna win in a landslide.
So, getting the pros out of the way, like I liked his story when he talked about when he was losing his hair. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. I thought that
Um,
was interesting too, and I honestly thought it was funny that he was like it seemed like he was traumatized by this.
well, that's what vain people get traumatized about.
Yeah.
Like I lost a lot of hair. I don't really give a shit. I think most of the time I just wear baseball caps, but um,
I
I
already
don't
just
give a shit
started.
so much that I don't shave my head. Like if anyone knows, I use a guard on a pair of clippers, but I put it set it like at 3 millimeters. So even when I shave my head, you can tell that I'm losing hair on the top of my head. I'm not keeping it obvious. I'm saying I'm not trying to hide so much that I'm losing my hair. Because some people use a freaking like bare razor to shave their heads
Yeah.
to hide the fact that they're going bald. I
Yeah.
I just shave. I just clip my hair at 3 millimeters, so
I'm
I'm not
probably gonna
actually
end up
hiding.
I'm
It's not.
probably gonna end up doing that too, because I I think I'm probably gonna lose my hair eventually because it seems like it's thinning at the top, and I have a pretty high forehead. So I already just started giving myself a buzz cut, and I'll probably just do that when I start losing my hair too, and I'll probably do something like just just shave it kind of short like I do with my facial hair, but never like I do this with my facial hair now. I stopped using like actual shaving cream and a razor. I just do the same thing you do with your head. I put the thing on the lowest possible setting and do that, and then I don't have to use shaving cream or anything like that, and it takes less time. So I'll probably
Oh,
do the same thing with my head when I start losing my hair, because I probably will.
well, I shave my face because I have to for work, but I just do it once a week. So by the time I have to shave, I have some pretty thick stubble on my face.
Right.
Because I only shave once a week because I only work in public eye 3 days a week. So I can get away with shaving on the first day. And by the third day, I'm still presentable. As a
Right.
matter of fact, I've slacked off, so I probably will have to shave once we end this. So I haven't shaved in probably a week and a half now.
Oh, okay.
But I need to be at least presentable by Monday, which is when people actually show up to this place.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as like losing my hair, I remember in the very beginning, I was like freaking out about it. Um, but I'm like, man, there's a lot of cool people that don't give a fuck about their hair. And
Hmm.
I'll be one of those people. As one of my friends, he went bald really early. He started going bald like in his early 20s.
Oh, wow.
And his solution was straight up taking a razor. And I can't do that. That's just, I would have too many skin problems if I did that.
Yeah, you mentioned before it does something weird to your skin.
Yeah, like it gives me acne if I shave that close on my head.
Hmm.
And I just end up having a bunch of like pussy pimples. And I was like, yeah, this is. I've shaved my head like with a razor probably twice in my life. And each time it happened was a horrible experience. So I've decided never to do that. And then I used to use the clippers without a guard,
Okay.
and I was getting a similar experience. So I'll have to put a guard on. So I can never really shave my head. I can, but I am subject to pain, and I don't want to subject myself to pain because I'm not that embarrassed about having a thinning hairline.
That's fair.
It's like it is what it is. I can go outside and see a ton of people like that, and like there's been cool people in the media. Like the coolest person in the media who had a bald head was probably who didn't shave it. I'm not talking about like Jeff Bezos or something. Um, One of the ones I always refer to is Skinner from the X Files. Do you know who I'm
I know,
talking
I know.
about?
I never really watched that show very much, so I
What?
don't think so.
Oh
No.
man. So Skinner was Mulder's boss,
Oh, okay.
and he had basically like your average like bald guy where you're completely bald on top and you got that rim of hair.
Oh, okay.
But
Like
he
the
was
ring of hair,
hmm?
like the ring of hair around the edge of your head.
Yeah, but he was like cool, a cool character because he was like he could kick Mulder's ass because he's. I remember they fought once and he just destroyed Mulder
Oh, okay.
because he's like built. He's not like a scrawny little dude like Mulder is. But I was like, yeah, you can look pretty cool and not have to worry about going bald. And then, I'm already like married, so it's not much of a big deal for me.
Right.
Like I don't have to peacock to anybody, so I really don't have to worry about that aspect.
Yeah.
But but I don't let it go into Krusty the Clown levels of baldness. There,
Yeah, that's good.
I keep it short enough so that yeah, you could see that I'm losing hair, but it's not ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. But yeah, burn this book. What is, I think I named the pros. Cons. Cons, 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 full of cons. It's just incessant whinging about the radical left.
The radical left is destroying everything. I used to be a part of them, but then they got crazy, so now I'm not really a
No,
conservative, but just kinda.
he was never a part of the radical left. Like his metric for being part of the radical left is the
He
Young
was on.
Turks. The Young Turks are not radical left.
Yeah, I guess according to radical, a lot of radical leftists like Jimmy Dore hate the fucking Young Turks.
I don't even think Jimmy Dore's a radical leftist.
Who would you
Like,
consider a radical leftist?
there aren't any mainstream radical leftists. How many radical leftists do you hear that are mainstream that talk about the crazy shit described in cynical theories?
Mm, only like crazy SJW people for the most part, really. But I
Yes, and
mean,
none
I
of
do
those
see
people are mainstream.
there are people on like alternative media, some of whom have big followings. Like Sam Cedar is one of them who talks about that woke shit constantly,
Does he?
and
I don't know. I don't really
and
follow.
Hassan Piker is another one. He
Okay. And Chapo
and
Trap House, I assume.
I'm not sure. I haven't really checked out Chapo Trap House.
All right. Well, they're the ones that, well, half of them didn't. Someone from there, they argued with Noam Chomsky about,
Was it Force the
uh,
Vote or something?
no, it was about not voting for Biden because he's not progressive enough.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I don't, okay. But I'm talking about he's concerned with these people as if they have all this power in modern society, and I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, I mean, it sort of
But
sounds like the
he
common.
equates it to he he's constantly talking about mainstream media. constantly in the book.
Yeah, that's true. He's saying like mainstream media is all woke and controlled by the woke leftists.
Yeah, and I think it's bullshit. Because I don't
Yeah,
think the Young Turks are woke leftists.
no, I don't think
Um,
so either.
yeah, and that's like one of his main criticisms about mainstream media. And he's like saying, "Oh yeah, free thinkers." I'm like, who the fuck is he talking about? Like, what's a free thinker?
All the true free thinkers are conservatives. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I don't understand. You have to be a free
Real
thinker, and it's like, well, what's a free thinker?
Well,
Like,
one of the real greatest, truest free thinkers is Candace Owens. She just really is
uh,
super smart and knows what she's talking
yeah, she's a grifter of the highest order.
about. Queen grifter.
Yeah, she isn't a free thinker. I think what they think about free thinking, he thinks free thinking is anyone contrary to the mainstream media, I
Yeah.
guess. But even
Well, if
then,
you're
like,
talking about the mainstream media, you're not really free. You're just a
so are you
prisoner
talking
to.
about all mainstream media, including Fox, or is he just talking about
No,
anyone
Fox
left of
is good.
center?
Fox is good. They're free thinkers because they're conservative.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And Fox is like the most watched news channel. Is he not including that into mainstream media?
Guess not.
Well, anyway, yeah, it's basically a lot of whinging about radical leftists and like I don't know, culture war bullshit that is not really relevant. When I was listening to this book, I was like, is he talking about like 2016? Like, when did you write this book, Dave? Like, maybe this was believable in 2016, but this shit doesn't really fly for me in 2021. You're saying this shit in 2016, and we are not ultra woke today because of your slippery slope arguments. We probably should be um, all in the gulag by now, you
Yep.
know. And I don't
Those
see,
matter neo-Marxists are gonna send us to the gulag.
and I don't see that the whole only black people can't be racist. I don't see that this has ever got traction to the degree that like none of these fat studies and queer studies and blah 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 studies, none of this shit has got traction.
I think most of the people who promote this shit are like 14-year-olds on social media.
Yeah, and to me the entire time when I'm listening to this book, I was like, Dave, it sounds like your entire political worldview is based off of crazy people on Twitter. Like,
Yep.
none of the shit that you talk about seems relevant to what actually is going on. And I was like, maybe if I spent as much time as he did on Twitter, I'd probably think the same thing. But it's just not the case. And I remember him, he was like, oh, these are the things that you need to consider if you're a classical liberal. It's like, oh yeah, abortion. It's like, what does abortion have to do with classical liberalism?
That's a good question.
It's like zero. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the founders of classical liberalism were really torn over the the abortion and the views of what I don't even think they even gave a shit about abortion back then. Like,
I don't know.
yeah,
That's a good question.
yeah. So I don't know, man.
I mean, probably. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming at least that support of abortion is much higher than it used to be.
Yeah. So I basically turned on Dave Rubin when the date I turned on Dave Rubin is when he got destroyed by Rogan.
Oh
Just
yeah,
straight up obliterated.
I
I
think
was
I
like, yeah,
waited a while. I think I waited a while after that. I was still
no.
defending him until like a year, maybe 2 years ago. Not sure.
Yeah, when he got obliterated on Rogan, I was like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yeah, no, no, I don't think so. Um, but yeah, I think even outside of political circles, Dave Rubin is known as being a grifter.
Yep.
And this is how I was just like listening to like a video game stream, and the guy doesn't really talk about politics much, but Dave Rubin came up for some reason as a okay, the reason Dave Rubin came up was a example of what a grifter is. It's like, holy shit. I was like,
Funny.
this is so widespread that even non-political channels consider him a grifter.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I don't know. I think it's really weird. I, I'm trying to think of why it is so widespread on the right side of the spectrum.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't. Maybe there's some on the left. I just don't have experience with it. I'm pretty
Mm,
sure there are, but they're not. I think the left wing, but even though, because you
before.
know actors, your brother's an actor, and they're being
Oh yeah.
genuine.
Yeah, there's
'Cause-
definitely that stuff.
but would you consider your brother a genuine adherent to those beliefs, or he's just saying it because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, no,
what?
he's not a grifter. He's not making money from any he's not making a cent from any of that shit.
Yeah, so it's. I'm just trying to think of like the woke Hollywood actors believe that shit, or if that's just kind of a thing.
I bet they're probably grifting. I
Some of
mean,
them, yeah, probably.
yeah, probably. It's probably fair to say that some of them, but not all of them. It's really hard to say. Yeah.
And I wanted to also add that Jeff Bezos' rocket looks like a penis.
Does it?
Okay, go look up Blue Origin rocket and let me know if that looks like a dick or not.
Blue. It's funny that it's called Blue Origin and it looks like a dick, like it's Viagra.
Yeah, go look at it. Go look up Blue Origin rocket and tell me if I made an accurate assessment of what the rocket looks like.
I'm gonna look up images.
Looks like a flying dildo. That's what it looks like.
Did that page load? Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Here we go. Oh wow, yeah.
I told
The
you.
way it's curved at the top makes it looks like a circumcised penis.
Yes, I think it's because it's lacking fins at the bottom. It just looks like a huge dildo.
They really did that too. Like they put a red ring around right where the bottom of the head of the penis would be.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the rocket that Jeff Bezos is going to fly into space on.
Oh, that's funny.
Giant dildo rocket.
Oh, that's funny.
Rocket propelled phallus.
Yeah. That even matches RPG too.
A rocket propelled phallus.
Yeah.
RPG. Uh, um,
Watch out, they've got an RPG.
but yeah, I gave it 2 stars. It's the book probably would have been hot if it was written in 2016, but I'm kind of past the whole woke left is bad. I'm not saying the woke left isn't good or anything. I'm just saying that they elevate the woke left to so far a level, it almost feels like we're in the McCarthy era looking for communists everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not like communists really have any type of I think it's ridiculous to think that a system that is so heavily capitalist is at any threat whatsoever at a very small fringe group of wannabe Marxists.
Well, I think it's probably true what a lot of a lot of people, like, what people who are like more politically centrist, who we follow, and some left wingers, and the well, I guess more left wingers than right wingers talk about how, you know, the country's kind of more controlled by a bipartisan corporatist elite who kind of influence politics and stuff, like, you know, how they fucked over Bernie Sanders for the last two presidential elections in a row and all that kind of stuff. And like, it's not. I like you were saying. I don't think there's any danger of it being taken over by Marxism.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, just the anti-woke crowd. I just see it as a red herring.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yeah,
not
me
talking
too.
about None of these people are talking about policy. They're just talking about, oh, look at the ridiculous stuff these radical leftists say,
It's all
and
culture
this.
war stuff.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's like none of them are talking about policy. Like,
Yeah.
how is this? Like, what are you for? What are you against? Oh, free speech. That's like the only thing he's for is free fucking speech. Like, can you be anything? Do you have any other policies besides free speech?
Yep.
Yeah, deregulation. And then that's when he got fucking destroyed by Rogan.
Yeah, we should just use cell phones videos to replace standards for building practices, because we don't need all this fucking government authoritarianism interfering with people building homes. We don't need a post office either. We'll have some private thing.
Yeah, let's have UPS deliver our mail. That
Yep.
sounds awesome.
Yep.
Or Amazon.
Yeah.
Nobody wants. Yeah, go ahead and
Have
advocate
to wait
that.
forever for it, man.
Yeah, go advocate that, Dave Rubin, for Amazon to deliver all of our mail. But no, that's a ridiculous book, man. Yeah, I was not moved. But there were some parts, like I said, that I did like. His personal anecdotes about non-political shit, and like some of his genuine positive messaging about things that were apolitical, and then but it's 90% whinging about the radical left. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Um, that's why I left Tim Pool. That's why I left you. Because there's more to politics than whinging about the radical left.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets
Both
really
him
boring
and
after a
both
while.
him and Tim Pool said, "Oh, Trump's gonna win by a landslide."
Yep.
Oh, I'm voting for Trump now because the radical left is out of control. It's like, yeah, sure. That's
Yep.
why we have Biden. They're so out of control that we have President Biden, the
No,
most
but didn't
mil-
you know that Biden was controlled by AOC and all the Marxists?
yeah, and AOC has gotten 0 bills passed. Makes so much sense, you guys.
He's got way too much power.
Like I read an article, and even Kyle Kalinske, a fan of AOC, covered this article that
And
AOC is largely an ineffective congresswoman
yeah, he
because she
says that
gets
on
nothing
several of
passed.
his videos, and he is a founder of the Justice Democrats, which he is a part of.
Yeah, so I like it that he's keeping it real.
Yeah.
He's not. Yeah, he makes fun of Republicans, but he'll make fun of Democrats too.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But anyway, that's it for the readings.
All right.
Um, wow, this was a pretty long stream. I
Yeah.
think it's because we
Hours.
covered a lot of stuff.
We did.
But Yeah, so I guess we could talk about what I'll be covering next week. So,
Uh,
next in
Castlevania
store, yeah, we'll have season one of Castlevania. I'm also going to put on the table, probably probably next month, we can start on book two of The Sword of Truth.
sounds good.
And I should be ready pretty much any day for Watt.
Yeah, you
And
want to do that? Do you want to do that with Tristram the week after next week?
yeah, we can ask him to see if he's up for doing it the week after next week, so we can cover the second part of Path of Daggers. So, yeah, next week let's go ahead and plan on Castlevania season one because I want to force you to watch the rest of this shit because it's so good.
Cool.
Um, yeah, it's like the anime series that isn't super goofy in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
There are some anime series that are good, but
For
because
sure.
they're culturally Japanese and weird at times, that they might be off-putting to people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain it.
I know what you mean.
I'm just familiar.
Dragon Ball Z, some parts.
Yeah, well, I'm like super familiar with anime. I've probably watched thousands and thousands of hours of it. So I totally get the culture. I also study Japanese regularly. But for those people outside of the culture, there are certain jokes that they make just totally make zero sense.
Right.
Like the humor is weird.
Do you speak Japanese?
Like elementary Japanese.
Oh, cool.
Like I can speak and read elementary level Japanese. This
So can
Japanese
you
is such a freaking complicated language. It's
are
not
you able to
complicated.
read are you able to read manga in the original Japanese language?
Um, it depends. If it's written in all hiragana and katakana, then yes. If there's a bunch of crazy kanji in it, then probably not.
How many different Japanese languages are there?
There's three alphabets, so
That's
there's
the three different alphabets that you just listed?
yeah, so the basic alphabet, hiragana, is kind of like the beginner alphabet. That's the phonetic alphabet.
Okay.
Katakana is also a phonetic alphabet that's pretty much. I don't know why they did this in Japanese, but in any words that are foreign based, because you know how in English we have a bunch of French words and German words and words from other languages because you can't, there's no English equivalent for sushi, right? In Japan, everything that doesn't have a Japanese or Chinese origin, they have a whole other alphabet, phonetic alphabet.
Wow. Okay.
So if you're saying like America, you'd have to spell it in katakana, which is another phonetic alphabet. And
Oh,
then there's a symbolic alphabet, which is kanji, which is based off of a symbol. So for instance, it's weird because I can see a kanji symbol, but I won't think of the actual word it represents, but the thing it represents. So sometimes when I'm reading kanji, I may not know what that kanji says, like phonetically, but I know what it represents. Because
okay.
in Japanese, there's like weird, I don't know, like there's numbers, right? 1 through 10. But when you're describing things, those numbers are different.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
like, I'll just take the number 7 for instance. No, not number 7 because it's kind of the same. Um, 6. So 6 is Roku.
Oh,
Roku.
I have a Roku.
Yeah. So when you say the number six is Roku, if you want to say six things, it's Mutsu.
Hmm, that's interesting.
But if you look at the kanji, it's the same kanji.
As Roku or the other word that you.
Roku and Mutsu, it has the same base kanji. The only difference between Roku and Mutsu, there's one hiragana letter for tsu.
Oh, okay. So it's two like characters.
No, it's the same character.
Oh, okay.
So Roku is the same as Mu. Roku and Mu, it's the same character.
Oh, okay.
Roku and then Mu. And then the Tsu, you add another, not a character, but the hiragana for Tsu. Hiragana for Tsu is always Tsu. It's not going to change. But the kanji can have different pronunciations.
Oh, okay. So
But what
the same character can have different pronunciations?
yes, if it's in kanji.
Oh, okay. So the same
But
character can have different pronunciations depending on the alphabet that you're using, which depends on the context.
well, it depends on the context. So if I'm saying I am 6 years old, or um, which would be what was I am 6 years old? Um,
Roku.
well, just say
I am Roku years old.
yeah, I'm Roku years old. Or say you have six desks, or like Skui ga mutsu arimasu.
Okay.
If okay, there are six tests. So, tsue ga mutsu arimasu means there are six tests, but
Okay.
it doesn't. You don't hear Roku anywhere there, right?
Right.
So if you hear Roku by itself, that's six. But when
Oh,
you're
okay.
describing things, like there are six things, it changes. But if you read it, the symbol for six and the symbol for six things is the same symbol.
Sorry.
So when you're looking at the symbols itself, it's easier to determine what they mean rather than what they say.
So, like, if you said one, two, if you were just listing numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Hmm.
you would say Roku. But if you were saying like I have 6 candies, then you would say the Mutsu. Is it?
Yeah, Mutsu.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Does it?
interesting. It's interesting how different languages can work so differently.
Yeah, but the symbol is the same. So if I don't know exactly how to say it, I know what it means
Okay.
because it has the six symbol, the Roku symbol,
Oh,
or the
okay.
Roku kanji. Roku
Okay.
kanji is the same as the Mutsu kanji, or at least the beginning of the Mutsu kanji, because Roku is one character. Mutsu is that same character with an added tsu on it.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
since I recognize that character as being six, I know in each context they're talking about six. So one is the number six, or like say, if they say, oh, it's 6 o'clock, like, what was it, 6 Jihan, 6:30, Roku Jihan, it would be, you'd be able to understand it. Because that symbol represents six, even though it's pronounced differently in different contexts. I think that's the hardest part is these symbols in different contexts have different pronunciations. So it's almost easier to read it than it is to speak it, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
But
Interesting.
some languages are easier to speak than read. I think
Yeah.
Japanese, when I'm practicing Japanese, if because in the app I use, it always shows the written word and then you hear them speaking it. When I hear them speaking it, I understand it more when the word is written there because the sentence structure is weird also. But um, I don't know. It's almost like I don't know. I just got interested in languages more recently, so I started using some language apps. This is like exercise my brain a bit more when it comes to
Cool.
those types of things.
I was doing that for a long time, but I got out of the habit. I did. I learned like I probably still remember bits and pieces of Spanish and Italian, but
Uh,
that's that's probably all I remember. I did learn a bunch of that for a little while. Um,
oh yeah, Spanish. I know a lot.
yeah, I remember that. Hmm.
I grew. I'm way more well versed in Spanish than I am in Japanese, um,
Yeah, yeah,
and I've probably studied Spanish less. It's just I'm around it a lot,
right.
and it has always been unavoidable. But I don't know. I just like Japanese because it's fun, and then because I was showing my wife me doing it, like the little apps and stuff. Like showing it to her. I was like, "Does this look like gibberish to you?" She's like, "Yeah, I have no idea what that is." And it just looks. I'm thinking, does it? It must look weird that I'm just kind of storming through these apps at a quick pace in this weird language that doesn't make sense to anybody that's used to speaking Western-based languages.
Hmm.
It's not only is there a weird alphabet, but there's weird sounds coming out of these people's mouths.
Yeah.
So it's like you can put parallels between English and Spanish at least because there's a lot of similar words that you can actually equate. I know there's some words that are like, huh, that don't make quite sense. Well, like what periodico? That's a newspaper. It makes sense. Like, okay, it comes out periodically, I guess.
Right.
But there's also easy ones like Cine, which is a movie, so that
Right.
makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of words that have root words that are understandable
Hmm.
that translate through.
Yeah.
Estudiante, what the hell is that? Of course, it's a student. Like a
Hmm.
lot of a lot of their even escuela is very close to school.
Hmm.
It's a lot of the words you can make these connections, but in Japanese you're like, what the fuck? Like
Yeah.
like you're operating on a completely different paradigm. Of course,
Hmm.
they use English words and words that come from other countries because you have to. Um, but even when they pronounce those words, you really have to listen very closely because they pronounce them in a Japanese way. They don't pronounce like you can go into other languages and you'll see that like in Spanish, Brian. It's like okay, they pronounced Brian like you normally would, but if you
Hmm.
heard a Japanese person say it, it was like, huh, what?
Right. Right.
Because there's not really a hard R sound in Japanese,
Right.
so it's gonna sound strange when they say it.
Oh, okay.
But I think and they would probably say Burayan, Burayan, Burayan.
Burayan.
Budaya. Because it's in Japanese, it's all syllables.
Oh,
Everything
okay.
is a syllable. Like there's
Oh, okay. Wow.
like if you look at their alphabet, it's syllabic.
Oh, okay.
So there's a symbol for sa, se, su, so, su,
Oh, okay.
and ma, me, mu, mu. And so it's all like you take a vowel and you match it with a consonant, and you have a syllabic alphabet.
Oh, okay. Cool. Cool, man.
It's fun. I
Uh,
like I like doing it. It's fun learning shit. I'm always trying to
yeah,
learn shit.
for sure. Me too. I'm sure that's one of the main things that attracted both of us to mixed mental arts.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
constant learning. That's why I love listening to podcasts and reading books and watching YouTube videos for the sake of education.
Mm-hmm.
Like I, c- I guess because I'm just thinking most of my YouTube watching is not for the sake of entertainment. Sometimes I'll get trapped in those little rabbit holes where they show me like some animal video and then like 10 animal videos later, I'm like, what the hell am I doing watching all these animal videos?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that happens to everybody.
yeah,
I don't know what it is about animal videos that just attracts people to
yeah.
them. But yeah, usually most of my YouTube diet is revolved around some type of education or learning of some sort. Like I know when I get off now, I'm probably going to learn about painting a tri-coat on a car.
Oh, okay.
This is something I'm going to attempt to do within the next few weeks, and I want to make
Oh,
sure I
yeah.
get it right.
Cool. Yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it's crazy how much education we have access to right now.
For sure.
Compared,
The-
like I'm trying to compare my life now than when I was growing up in the 80s. And I'm trying to think, man, how smart is my daughter going to be? Because she has access to all of this now.
And it's
And
like like we were talking before, the about tools. The internet is a tool, right? It depends on what you use it for. You can use it to watch TikTok videos all day, or you can use it more like we do and use it to learn things.
yeah, so, and my daughter skews towards education.
That's good.
So she actually, like, I think she likes to watch like kids' science like videos, and the last video she was watching was like some type of show based around the koala rescue unit that rescues like koalas. And this is like the stuff that she picks. Like she'll go on YouTube and pick her own shit. I don't go, well, sometimes I do. I'm like, hey, check this out. I think it's because we have a big cicada issue going on here. So I had her watch a video about cicadas. And that was like a couple weeks ago, but she's mostly autonomous when it comes to watching YouTube content. But there is some times where she watches like these stupid people. I was like, I'm tired of these people. Watch something else.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh, these kids playing with these stupid toys. Yeah, they're annoying. Diana, go watch something else. Yeah, I'm just happy that we have such great access to all of this information, and it's like, how can someone be bored almost? It's like almost
Yeah,
impossible to be bored.
exactly.
I don't
I have
remember
trouble
how.
I have trouble understanding it whenever anyone complains about that. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't have enough time in the day to do all the things I want to do.
I guess that's just kind of how some people are simply not entertained by that stuff. I guess I can understand that.
Yeah,
It
I
just so
used
happens
to.
that education for us is like an entertaining endeavor in itself.
Yeah, and with like you were saying, with the internet, like 99% of the way that I educate myself is free.
Yeah, and that's amazing.
Yeah,
All right, so we've gone on for a while. Let me
yeah.
actually get downstairs so I can get to that button that I'll need to press
Okay.
eventually.
Yeah, I was about to say I should get going.
But yeah, next week, okay, go ahead and outline what we'll be doing tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. So tomorrow, Dusty and I are going to talk about aliens and UFOs because there was this recent recent news in the New York Times about how the Pentagon admitted that UFOs are real, or like they have found craft that are quote unquote not from this world. And then some people are getting carried away saying, "Bro, this means aliens exist and I've been probed." And all this kind of stuff, which I think is entertaining. And I was telling you that I think it would be cool to do some episodes on my channel about specific conspiracy theories, and this is often like a conspiracy theory thing that people believe about, and you used to be a conspiracy theorist, and you said you have some stories to tell too, so that'll be
Yeah,
interesting to talk about
plenty,
tomorrow. Yeah.
plenty of stories. So we'll go through that tomorrow, and that's what we're going to talk about. I
Yep.
just need to get a little bit more up to date on the current events. So I'm going to go watch a couple videos, and I know Rising has covered it. So I'll have stuff to watch regarding and I know there were a couple other events that happened because I know Rogan had a couple people on. The Blink 182 guy
Yeah,
came
yeah, I
on.
saw that.
That one ended up being true to some extent because there was that government official that came out shortly after that appearance.
Hmm.
But he was like super vague about what was going on. But anyway, yeah,
I
we
can't
can
tell you,
definitely
man, they'll kill me.
we can definitely get into that. But
Yeah,
yeah, that'll be tomorrow. So join us on Andrew's channel, and we're going to
yeah,
talk about the scary UFOs. And then next
yeah.
week on this channel, we'll talk about Castlevania Season 1, only 4 episodes. I'm sure any of you guys can knock that out if you haven't knocked it out already. I've already watched it. I'm going to watch it again because I love the show anyway. And the first season is just that short. So
Hmm.
that's what we'll talk about next week. So it's not probably not going to be a super humongous 3 hour megaton stream because we
Yeah,
crammed so much into this particular episode here.
yeah.
But yeah, it will be um, all about Castlevania.
All right. Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, check that out tomorrow, and check out Mindgasms tomorrow for our alien chat. And yeah, I guess the people can check me out on the social media if they want to as well. I guess you got my Twitter in the description there, Andrew Meintzer, or
Yeah,
you can find me at Andrew Mindgasms also there, or on Instagram, and I'm Andrew Meintzer on the Facebooky and
booha.
uh, Facebooky booha, yeah, and check out Mindgasms on Patreon also.
All right, awesome, man. But yeah, check out his stuff, and we'll be next week talking about Castlevania. Stay tuned for our series about Castlevania as well as Sword of Truth, and we'll let you know when we come back and talk about the Wheel of Time, which should be pretty soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe the video, share, discuss. Anybody that writes any comments, unless it's like complete spam bullshit, I will respond to it. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. All
Me
right,
too.
well, you guys, don't tell me this thing froze right at the worst moment. How dare you?
No.
How dare you? Uh, can't believe this bastard.
Oh, really? It
Worst
was right
timing
there.
ever. How dare you, team viewer? I can't even log out.
Oh,
Okay, I think I'm almost there now.
okay.
But yes, join us next week, you bastards, you education loving bastards. And
Yeah, see us next week, nerds.
yeah, and I'll end this as soon as I can figure out how to do it. This bastard program isn't letting me. Doesn't like me today.
Oh, it's not good.
Ugh, why?
Is it frozen?
Well, the program that I connect to remotely is like just showing a black screen,
Hmm,
so I can't see anything.
that's weird.
It's Because I was just reconnecting to it previously, and I got in, and then it froze, and then I'm trying to get back into it now, and I'm having zero luck doing so.
Hmm. That's
So that
weird.
means the stream is still active until I can press that button.
Oh, okay.
This sucks, man.
Oh wow. That's not.
When things go horribly bad, they go
Yeah.
bad. Well, this means
Hmm.
I need to use an alternative remote viewer here. So let me try and see if that works. I
I
don't
was
know
gonna
why it just.
backup plan.
Yeah, I got an alternate here, backup. Okay. All right, well, there. Well, it looks like the backup plan is working.
Okay.
What? And no wonder it's messed up. In
What's
TeamViewer, it shows that I'm like have two sessions open, which is
oh.
ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, let me man, everything's all jacked up looking. I get rid of this